Chapter 1352. Bright Sky Palace.
Qin Feiyong waved his hand and the door closed with a bang. Then, Lu Zhang appeared out of thin air. Qin Feiyong asked, "What exactly do you have in mind?"
I already said it's a secret. Why are you still asking?
Lu Zhang rolled his eyes at Qin Feiyong and said, "In short, you can stay here at ease and wait for my good news." After saying that,
Lu Zhang opened the portal and disappeared without a trace. Qin Feiyong frowned. His figure flashed and also disappeared. Ancient pagoda. Above the village. Qin Feiyong stood in the void, looking down at the village. Soon, he found Master Shen. At this moment, Master Shen was kneeling in the square in the center of the village. His clothes were ragged and his body was badly mutilated. He looked like a beggar, battered and exhausted. The villagers who passed by the square couldn't help but come forward and spit on him. Their eyes were full of disgust. There were even some children who peed on him. Swish! Qin Feiyong stepped out and landed on the square. "Greetings, young master." There were two burly men who were specially guarding Master Shen. When they saw Qin Feiyong appear, they immediately bowed and saluted. They were both 8-star combat emperors. Qin Feiyong nodded and smiled. He looked down at Master Shen and said lightly, "How does it feel to be condemned by thousands and spurned by thousands?" Master Shen immediately looked up at Qin Feiyong, his eyes full of resentment. "It seems that you haven't repented, but I don't expect you to. You can continue to kneel here and be tortured slowly. Don't blame anyone, because this is what you deserve." Qin Feiyong said coldly. He looked up at the center of the square and was stunned. In the center of the square stood a stone statue. It was more than 100 feet tall. From the outline it was a young man. "Who is this?" Qin Feiyong looked at the two burly men and asked. The two men smiled at each other and said mysteriously, "Young master, why don't you go and take a look?" Qin Feiyong looked at the two of them suspiciously. He walked to the front of the stone statue and looked up. His body suddenly stiffened. This stone statue was actually him. "A few days ago, Miss Lu Hong told us that this place was originally reserved for you to plant the Tree of Creation, but you changed your mind and planted the Tree of Creation in the herb field. We thought that we couldn't just leave it empty, right? Thus, after some discussion, we decided to create your statue here. Firstly, it's our respect for you. Secondly, let the juniors of the village remember that it was you who saved the village. They must remember this kindness forever." The two burly men came over and explained with a smile. "Why not? Idle. His Majesty hasn't appeared for so long." Qin Feiyong shook his head and smiled bitterly. "No, Steward, if it wasn't for the young lord's help, is there something you're hiding from us? We would never have been able to escape from the state preceptor's evil. Although 25 days had passed, the civil and military officials were enraged. The two men said there were no became aggressive. Qin Feiyong looked at the sincere faces of the two men and whether it was the imperial tutor or old man Qin, not knowing how to deal with it. They were both deliberately blocking His Majesty today. It's nothing. As for Lu Xingqi, rubbed their heads and we will stand silent and not leave. However, a portion of shook his head and capital looked calm. They were all old officials of the Qin Empire. Old man Qin and the imperial tutor had never stopped. By the way, the imperial tutor tried his best to monopolize the power. Loyal to the emperor. Old man Qin tried his best to stop him. It is His Majesty's order to never everyone. Old man Qin, why make things difficult for the steward? Because the imperial tutor had laughed aloud and said, "And Zhuge Wu look after Master Shen as well as the Zhuge family. Don't let him hurt the children in the village." Moreover, the invincible black two men also basically under the imperial tutor's he ran in front of Zhuge Wu, then turned around and stepped into the air. Was ascending over the herb commander of the construction of the deal with them was more than half completed, so the entire herb field covered an area of 5 or 600 anyone's help. The head old man Qin against the imperial tutor with multicolored light. His Majesty has a terrible vitality for so many days. During this period, aren't you worried at all? Went to the bright heaven palace to look for Qin Feiyong several times. This person was also a dragon. Only Qin Feiyong should keep the imperial tutor, but his strength was much weaker than Zhuge Wu planted the tree of fortune in the center of the herb field. Not to mention seeing magical flash in his old eye. He didn't even hear Qin Feiyong's voice. This marquis also planted the small tree of fortune next to it. Stood alone but compared the former,
it was
frowning in
completely
silence.
I just said that it was
His
His Majesty
Majesty's
the
order to
Emperor
once
was under
again
everyone.
for some reason.
What's the
Everyone
use of making
things
difficult for
on
the
the morning of the
steward?
26th day,
Wu
Qin
Chen
Feiyang
Xiao
secluded
Wuho said,
early in
we
the
are not
morning,
making
and
things difficult
outside
for
the
us
Golden
all.
Imperial
We just want to
Palace.
see His Majesty with our
Hundreds of
own
young
eyes
came
and
one
confirm
after
His
another.
Majesty's
Seeing
safety. They were the civil and
Qin
military
Feiyang's
officials
arrival
immediately
everyone
darkened
raised their
his head
heads.
The
angrily.
various
Qin
Marquesas
Feiyang
were also there.
What do you mean
Thank
by
you.
that?
They gathered outside the Golden Imperial Palace,
in the Imperial
whispering and
Palace,
discussing
building
in low
the
voices
voices
for the
Majesty,
benefit
and
of
most
all
of them were
Xiao
questioning
Wuho's
voices,
expression
including
changed.
the head eunuch
and
walked
walked out of the
hurriedly
Golden
said,
Imperial
"No, that's
Palace
not hard
and
to
asked
do.
suspiciously,
It's worth
then
it.
what do you mean?
He horse roared.
Zhuge
Head
Wu
eunuch's
hasn't
eyes
been
darkened.
last time you
Why
said
did
that
your
His
Majesty
Majesty
suddenly
Wuho's
become
aura
so
let
sweet?
him handle the matters at hand.
Qin Feiyang
But
looked
now
down
Wuho's eyes were also filled with anger as he said,
help it open the door of
Is it
potential.
wrong for me to
Otherwise,
Majesty
why would it come here to help?
Can
That's
you
right.
Wang
See
Kai
His
said,
Majesty
but please
disdain.
don't
The
talk
civil and
nonsense.
military
Immediately
officials
glared
glared
at
one
him.
after another.
After
Am I
all,
wrong? As
you are
time
a
passed,
typical person
who
who
doesn't
doesn't
wake
wake
up
up
early
early
without
without
benefits.
benefits.
I'm afraid that
Dan
Wang
Wu
Kai said in
the head
disdain.
eunuch shook his head.
Then you
shouldn't
shouldn't
say
say
it
it
in
in
public.
public.
Zhuge Wuho
How
said,
can I face others
in
inferior
future
motives to do that?
This
Paper
man
can't wrap
only
fire.
wanted
You
to
can
see
ask
this
all
all
the
the
famous
people and
saying.
ferocious
Yet you're
beasts
obstructing
here.
me in every
Who
way
doesn't
possible.
want to open the door
If
of
there's
potential?
anyone with ulterior motives,
Seahorse said in
it's
dissatisfaction.
Marquis Xiao shouted. All right.
I won't mistreat
Marquis
anyone.
Xiao.
Please
However,
pay attention to
everyone
your
knows
words.
that the medicinal
Zhuge
herbs for
Wuho
opening
was
the door
furious.
of potential are too
Just
precious.
as the two of them were
I
about to
can't take
explode
care
in
of
anger,
everyone.
a figure
Qin
descended from
Feiyang
the sky
smiled.
above the throne room.
Understood. He was wearing
It's
a
up to
dragon
you.
robe and a dragon crown
Seahorse
on his
chuckled.
head. His
His entire
entire
body was
confidence in
exuding
itself.
an extremely majestic
And
aura.
the capital of its
Who else could
confidence
it
was
be but the
undoubtedly
Emperor?
its cultivation.
Your Majesty.
As a 9-star
The head
emperor
eunuch
was
beast.
overjoyed.
It could really help Qin
He
Feiyang
quickly
at the
flew
moment.
to the
front of the Emperor
Therefore,
and bowed.
Qin
Your
Feiyang would
Majesty.
definitely prioritize
Greetings, Your
In
Majesty.
fact, the
Qin
officials
Feiyang
below
had long
also
thought about
knelt
helping
and
Wang
kowtowed,
Yongfeng and Lei Bao,
including Marquis
these 9-star
Zhuge.
emperor beasts.
However,
to
in
open
Marquis
the door of
Zhuge's
potential.
heart,
However, there was a big problem
bewildered.
in helping them
Wasn't
open the
the
door of
emperor
potential.
already killed?
Because their
Why did he
cultivation was
suddenly
too
come
high.
back?
They needed
And
the
from the
help of
looks
the
of it,
pseudo-god's
there
pressure.
was no trace of
However,
injury.
in the forgotten
All of
continent
you
of the great
rise.
Qin Empire,
The emperor swept
there
his
were no
gaze across the crowd
pseudo-gods
of
worthy of
officials,
his trust, and an
He
inexplicable
didn't even
light
completely
flashed in
trust
his
Elder
eyes.
Qin. He then entered the
Therefore,
throne room
this
and
matter
sat on the
couldn't be
dragon
rushed.
throne right above.
Bas. The civil
Suddenly,
and military officials
image
also
crystal
entered
rang.
the throne room one after
Qin
another,
Feiyang hurriedly took it out
lining
and
up on
poured his
both sides
battle
of the
chi
hall
into
below.
it. The next
Your
moment,
Majesty,
I
Liu
heard that
Zhang's
you were
virtual
unwell.
image appeared.
Are you better now?
Have you found it?
Marquis Xiao
Qin
took a step
Feiyang
forward
asked.
and asked with concern.
Lu Zhang didn't answer but
I'm
asked
fine
instead,
now. Are
"Thank
you
in
for
the
your
ancient
concern,
pagoda?"
Marquis Xiao?
Yes.
The
Qin
emperor said
Feiyang
with a
nodded.
faint smile. Then come
Marquis
out
Xiao
quickly.
heaved a sigh of relief
After
and
Lu
said
Zhang
respectfully,
finished speaking,
"Your
the
Majesty's
virtual
words
image
are too
dissipated.
serious.
Caring
What
for
are
your
you
majesty
looking for?
is your subject's
Did
duty
something
and
happen again?"
responsibility.
Lu Hong
The emperor
soared into the
nodded
sky
and waved his
asked with
hand.
concern.
Marquis
The
Xiao
old man
bowed
and the others
consciously
also looked at
retreated
him
to his original
suspiciously.
position.
Because
Another
inside the
minister
ancient
walked
pagoda,
out from the crowd
they couldn't
and
hear the
stood in the
sounds
middle of the
outside.
hall.
So no one
He
knew that
bowed
the
and
emperor
said,
had been killed.
"Your Majesty,
Don't
there
worry,
have been a lot of
it's
official
nothing
matters
serious.
piled up these days.
I'll take care of
This
it
old
as soon as
minister,
possible."
But
Before
Qin
he could
Feiyang
finish,
comforted
the
Lu
emperor
Hong
waved his
and
hand
nodded
and
to the
said,
old man and the
"We'll
others
talk about
below.
official matters later."
Then, he left
Leave
the
first.
ancient pagoda
I have
and
something
appeared
to
in the main
announce.
hall. Lu
Yes.
Zhang was in the main
The
hall
minister
at this
was
moment.
slightly taken aback.
Seeing Qin
Respectfully
Feiyang appear,
responded, Lu Zhang
and then
immediately
retreated into
frowned
the
and
crowd.
said, "It's
The
very
emperor
strange."
glanced at the civil and military officials.
The
Qin
civil and
Feiyang was
military
stunned and
officials
looked at him
also
in
looked at the
confusion.
emperor
Lu
suspiciously.
Zhang said, "For a
"I
moment,
found the
the
whereabouts
throne
of the
room
emperor.
fell into a
Do
dead
you know where
silence.
he is?"
A moment
Qin
later,
Feiyang was
the
instantly
emperor finally
annoyed and
broke the
roared,
silence and said
"Aren't
with a
you talking
smile,
nonsense?
The matter that I
If
want
I
to announce
knew,
is a great
would
thing
I still
for my
be
great
here
Qin
looking at you?
Empire.
This
What good
guy is
thing?
really crazy."
Marquis Zhuge's
asking
eyes
idiotic
flashed as he
questions.
asked with a smile.
Lu Zhang smiled
The emperor
embarrassedly
said,
and said,
"I have already
"The emperor is
comprehended
now in
the
the
profound
spiritual
meaning
state,
of becoming
and
a
he's
god.
in the place where you used to live.
What?
Iron Ox
Marquis
Town."
Zhuge was shocked.
What?
The
Qin
others were
Feiyang
stunned for
was
a
stunned.
moment, and And then
This
they
is
were
what I
all
don't
overjoyed.
understand. The Emperor
Elder
smiled
Qin went
and
to
said,
check.
However,
And no one activated
I
the
have just entered the
teleportation
threshold
altar in the
and still need
past
to
few
comprehend
days.
it. How did the
Therefore,
Emperor go
I
to
have
the
decided to
spiritual
go into
state?
seclusion for a period of
Besides,
time.
he's not injured at all
This
and
is
he's not
indeed a good
captured.
thing.
Your
Lu Zheng
Majesty
frowned.
becoming a god is what
Wait,
everyone
wait.
wants.
We
Qin Fei Yang
support your
quickly raised
majesty.
his hand and interrupted
The civil
Lu
and
Zhang,
military
asking,
officials laughed.
You said he's not captured?
Yes,
The Emperor
he's
smiled
alone
and
in
said,
Iron Ox Town.
However,
And he's
during
sitting
this period of
leisurely in
time
front
when
of
I
the
am
lake
in
outside your
seclusion,
yard.
someone must be
Fishing.
in charge of the court.
Lu Zheng
After
said
thinking
strangely.
about it,
I finally found a suitable
Fishing.
candidate. Qin Fei Yang was dumbfounded.
Everyone looked at
What's
the Emperor
going
in
on?
confusion.
Suddenly,
There was expectation
he realized
and desire.
another important
Being
point
in
and
charge
looked
of
at
the
Lu
imperial
Zheng with a
court was a
frown.
good job.
You've
And
already
everyone
been to
wanted
Iron
it.
Ox Town?
The Emperor glanced
No.
at the officials
Lu
and said
Zheng
with a
said.
smile, This person
Then
is the
how do you know
imperial
so
preceptor.
clearly?
The
At that
imperial
time,
preceptor
Mu
is
Qin
highly
activated
respected
his
and
all-seeing eye.
resourceful. but he
I
couldn't
am
even
most at
find the
ease with
exact
him taking
location
charge of the
emperor.
court.
But you even
I
know
wonder
that he's
if
fishing?
anyone has any
Isn't
objections?
this a little too incredible?
Hearing this, many
Qin
people had a
Fei-yong
trace
said.
of disappointment
Lu
in their
Zhang
eyes.
coughed
dryly and said,
In terms of
"Don't worry
qualifications
about
and
that.
strength,
Anyway,
no one can compare
I've
to the
already found
Imperial
him.
Preceptor.
He
This
seemed to
old
be
official
hiding
has
something.
no
objections.
Qin
Fei-yong
This
looked at him
old official
deeply.
has no
It seemed
objections
that the
either.
Lu family was still hiding
Several
many
officials
unknown
expressed
secrets.
their opinions one
Because
after
it was
another.
obvious that Lu
When the
Zhang
others heard
himself
this,
didn't have
they
this
also
ability.
shook their heads,
Therefore,
indicating
it
that
could
they
only
had
be
no
the Lu
objections.
family who helped him behind
Very
the
good.
scenes.
The Emperor's
Iron Ox
dragon
Town.
face was overjoyed.
Qin Fei-yong pondered for
He
a
looked at
moment,
the eunuch on
opened
the
the
side
portal,
and said,
and appeared in the
"Summon
pagoda
the
again with
Imperial
Lu
Preceptor."
Zhang. Elder
Yes.
Qin
The
was
eunuch
repairing the
responded
pagoda door.
respectfully and said
Sensing
loudly,
the aura of the two,
Imperial
he frowned
Preceptor.
and said,
Why
before
are you
his
here
voice
again?
faded,
We found
the
the
Imperial
Emperor.
Preceptor
Come with
appeared
us.
outside the throne
Qin
room
Fei-yong
and strode
into the
directly
throne room.
rushed into the pagoda.
He bowed and
At
said,
the same time,
"This old official
Iron
greets
Ox
your
Town.
majesty."
In
Did
front
you
of
hear
the
what
lake,
I said
before,
a middle-aged
the
man
Emperor
sat alone by
asked.
the lake.
Yes, fishing
The
quietly.
Imperial Preceptor
There was a
replied
teapot next to him,
respectfully.
and wisps
Emperor
of tea
asked,
fragrance floated
"Then
in
are
the
you
air.
willing to take on this
That's
heavy
right.
responsibility?"
He was the current emperor.
This is this old
But at
official's
this
honor.
moment, he had
This old
already
official
taken
will
off
do
his
his
dragon
best
robe
to
and
manage the
dragon
court
crown.
and wait for your majesty to
He
come
was
out of
only wearing
seclusion.
an old white
The
robe,
Imperial
and there was
Preceptor
no
lowered
trace
his
of the
head and
Emperor's
said,
aura around him,
not declining
and
at
there was
all.
no aura
Because
of
this was
cultivation on his
exactly
body
what he
either.
wanted. If someone came
I believe
here
in
now,
you.
they would never
The
know
Emperor
that the man
nodded,
in front of
then
them
looked
was
at
the
the
emperor who
officials and
controlled the
said,
fate of hundreds
"If
of
there is
millions of
anything
people
in the
in the Great
future,
Qin Empire,
there is no need to
they
go
would
through
only
me.
think that he was an
You can
ordinary
directly
man
report
born
to
to
the
the Imperial Preceptor."
Your Majesty.
Yes.
Soon.
Everyone replied.
A cry of surprise and
Emperor waved
surprise
his hand
sounded
and
above
said,
the lake.
"Then you can
The
leave
Emperor was
first.
slightly stunned.
I still have
He
things to
looked
tell
up
the
and saw
Imperial
two shadows
Preceptor."
descending from
Oh,
the void
right.
above. Zhuge
It was
Wuhou,
Qin Fei-yong
Stay, and Elder Qin. This official
As for
will
Lu
take his
Zhang,
leave. After
the
entering the
civil and
spiritual
military
state,
officials
he took
bowed
the initiative
respectfully,
to ask Qin
then turned
Fei-yong
around
to
and
send
left
into
the
the throne
ancient
room in an
castle.
orderly manner. Obviously,
Zhuge Wuhou
at the
stood
moment,
below,
Lu
looking
Zhang
at the
didn't want to
Imperial
see the
Preceptor
Emperor.
and the Emperor. His eyes filled with suspicion.
Chapter
The Emperor looked at the
1353.
eunuch and said,
Qin
"You
Fei-yong
can
glanced
leave as
at the
well,"
Emperor and then
closed
looked at the door on
courtyard
the
not
way.
far away.
Yes.
The gate of the
The
courtyard
eunuch
was
replied
open,
and
and the
quickly ran
Emperor had
out,
obviously
closing
entered.
the door. What are
After
you
the
doing
door was
here?
closed, the
Get
Imperial
out of here
Preceptor
at
waved
once.
his hand and a
This
barrier
is my
appeared,
last piece of pure
enveloping
land.
the entire
I
hall.
don't want anyone
This
to
barrier
touch it,
had the effect of
especially people
soundproofing.
like you.
Even if one
Qin
stood
Fei-yong
outside the door,
shouted.
they would
The
not
Emperor
be able
looked
to
up at
hear the
Qin
sounds
Fei-yong
inside.
and said,
The
"Then,
whole world
the
belongs
Imperial
to me."
Preceptor turned to
What
look at Zhuge
qualifications
Wuhou
do you
and
have to
chuckled.
ask me to get
Are
out?
you very puzzled right now?
Haha.
Qin Fei-yong laughed and shook his head.
It seems
Zhuge
that you already
Wuhou
feel
wanted
guilty.
to say something but hesitated.
What do you mean?
As if he was
The
somewhat
Emperor
afraid.
raised his
The
eyebrows.
Imperial Preceptor
Qin
glanced at
Fei-yong
the Emperor,
sneered,
then
"Then
looked
tell
at
me,
Zhuge
the world
Wuhou
is
and
so big.
smiled. Why did you
Don't
come
worry,
here
he's
instead
one
of
of
going to
us."
other places?
One of
Are
us?
you here to repent?
Zhuge Wuhou looked
or
at
to
the
atone
Emperor
for
in
your
shock.
sins? The Emperor's
Don't
face
be
was
too
also full of
self-righteous.
smiles.
I'm not
The
here to
Imperial
repent or
Preceptor
atone
looked
for
at the
my
Emperor
sins.
and smiled.
Because the
Let him
decisions
see
I have
your
made in my
original
life
body.
are right, and I have
The
never
Emperor
regretted
nodded
it.
and consumed a facial
Emperor
restoration
said
pill.
lightly.
Immediately.
Then what are you doing here?
Whether it was the Emperor's
Qin
figure or
Fei-yong
face,
shouted.
they all
The
began
Emperor
to
said,
change.
"I'm here to see how
Finally,
down and out
a
you used to
familiar
be."
face appeared in Zhuge
Bastard.
Wuhou's line of
Before
sight.
the Emperor could say
If
anything,
Qin Fei-yong was here,
Qin Fei-yong
he
was
would be
already
able to
furious.
recognize him at a glance.
Qin Fei-yong,
This person
calm
was
down.
Zhuge Nanhua.
Old Qin saw
This
that the situation was
Zhuge
not
Wuhou
good
was
and
stunned.
comforted him.
Zhuge Nanhua
However,
laughed.
Qin
How is
Fei-yong
it?
turned
Are
a
you
deaf ear and
surprised?
stared at the Emperor,
Zhuge Wuhou
saying,
was stunned.
"You're right.
He looked at the
You're the
Imperial
Emperor.
Preceptor and
The
Zhuge
whole
Nanhua
world belongs
and
to
asked,
you. What
But
exactly is
listen
going
to me
on?"
carefully.
Zhuge
In this
Nanhua
world,
said,
not every
"This is the
place
first
is ruled
step of
by
our
you.
plan. I'll say it one
At the
last
same
time.
time,
Get out of here,
pagoda.
otherwise a
Don't blame
middle-aged
me for
man
being
wearing
ruthless.
Kirin armor suddenly
Boom.
descended in front of the
After
pagoda.
saying that,
It was
a
the
monstrous
commander of the
killing
Kirin
intent
army.
rushed out from between
Old man
Qin
Qin
Fei-yong's
sat
eyebrows.
cross-legged in front of the
The
pagoda.
kill character
Sensing
was
the aura
manifested.
of the commander of the
The
Kirin
bloody
army,
kill character made
he
him
opened
look
his
like a
eyes
god
and
of
asked,
death.
"What are you
Old
doing
Qin's
here?"
heart trembled.
Let me tell you a
It
piece
seemed
of
that
good
this
news.
place was really a piece
His
of pure
Majesty
land
is
in
back.
Qin Fei-yong's
The
heart.
commander commander of the
and the
Kirin
emperor
army
had
laughed.
touched his reverse
What?
scale. Old
If
man
this
Qin
continued,
suddenly stood
the
up.
father and son
His
pair
face
might
full
really
of
come to
surprise.
blows.
He had been guarding
Scram.
the pagoda the entire
Qin Fei Yong
time.
roared. How
His
could he
voice
not
like
know
a
that
great
the
bell,
emperor had
shaking
returned?
the sky. What is
Bang.
it?
You
But at
seem
this
to be
moment,
very surprised.
Old man Qin,
the commander
who was
of
at
the
the Kirin
side,
army, looked at
suddenly
Old Man
raised his
Qin
arm and slapped the
suspiciously.
back of Qin Fei
Are
Yong's
you sure
head.
that His Majesty is really back?
Qin Fei Yong
Old
abruptly
man
turned his
Qin
head and
asked.
looked at Old Man
Yes.
Qin as he slowly fell
He's
to the
in the
ground.
throne room right
At the
now.
last moment before
Although
he
I
lost
haven't met His
consciousness,
Majesty yet,
Qin
the
Fei Yong's
civil and
entire
military
body
officials
disappeared
are all
with a thought.
discussing it.
What
And
happened
it is said that His
outside?
Majesty also
Inside
announced
the
a piece
castle.
of great news.
Lu
Zhang was
The
bewildered.
commander of the
Since
Kirin army
Qin Fei
said,
Yong
wasn't in the castle.
What good news?
He couldn't see what was
Old
going
man
on
Qin
outside.
frowned. He could
The
only
commander
hear
of the
the
Kirin
sounds.
army laughed.
Bang.
His Majesty has
Suddenly,
reached the peak
a
of the
voice
9-star
sounded
combat
behind
Emperor
him.
realm and is
Lu
preparing to
Zhang
go into
hurriedly turned
seclusion
his
to
head and saw
comprehend the
Qin
profound
Feiyong
meaning
appear
of
out of
becoming
thin
a god
air.
and fall heavily to
How
the ground.
could this be? He had
Old
already
man
fainted.
Qin
Was confused.
Little cousin.
He knew very
He
well
hurriedly
that
ran
the
up
emperor
and
had
reached
not
out to
returned
feel
to
the
Qin
imperial
Feiyong's
capital.
pulse.
But
When
why
he
would there
found
be
that
an
Qin
emperor in the
Feiyong
throne
was still
room?
alive,
Could it
he was
be?
relieved. Suddenly,
Who did it?
Old
Could
man
it be
Qin
Old Man
seemed to have
Qin?
thought of something.
His
Lu
eyes
Zhang
trembled
raised his
slightly as he
eyebrows
asked,
and listened carefully
Who
to
will
the
be in
movements
charge of the
outside.
imperial court when His Majesty is in
Old
seclusion?
man Qin
The
watched
commander of
Qin
the Kirin
Feiyong
army
disappear
said.
and frowned slightly.
His Majesty
Then he
announced in
waved
front
his
of the
hand
civil
and
and
a
military
surprising
officials
scene
that the
appeared.
state preceptor will
Above
be
the
in
lake,
charge of the
a
imperial
boundary
court.
suddenly appeared.
Old man Qin
Then,
was furious.
Old man Qin
How dare
directly
he
let
enter the
someone
boundary
pretend to be
and
His
landed
Majesty
in front of the emperor?
How dare he?
He
was about to bow
The commander
and
of the
kowtow.
Kirin army
The
did not
emperor
know,
hurriedly reached
but
out to
Old
stop
Man
him and
Qin
said
was
secretly.
very clear.
Although
He
Qin
knew what was
Feiyong
going
is
on as
unconscious,
soon as he heard
there
this.
must be other people in the castle. If you
Old
have
man,
something to
just
say,
you wait.
just send
Today,
a message secretly.
I'm going to fight you
Don't
to the
say
end.
it out loud.
Old Man Qin's
Yes.
eyes flashed
Old
with
man
murderous
Qin
intent.
secretly responded.
He immediately opened the
emperor glanced at
teleportation
the
door
barrier
and
walked
sighed
in with
inwardly.
great anger.
It
What
seems that the
happened?
barrier you set up isn't very useful. The boundary was actually set
Chapter
up by Old Man Qin.
1358.
If Qin
At the same
Feiyong
time,
and Lu Zhang heard
Qin
this,
Feiyong
they would
also
definitely be
received the
shocked.
news.
I didn't expect
it
that
was
Qin
Yen Wei who
Feiyong
told
and the
him,
others were so
but
powerful
Qin
that they could
Feiyong
ignore
didn't
the
say
boundary
anything,
and find your
nor
position.
did he intend to
Old
ask.
Man Qin also
He
looked
continued to
helpless
copy
and then
the
asked,
Xing formula.
What should we do
Looking
next?
at Qin
The
Feiyong's
emperor was
performance,
silent for a
Lu
moment
Zhang
and sighed.
His
Even
heart
the
was
boundary
filled
you
with
set up
helplessness.
can't escape their detection.
It seemed that this time,
To be honest,
this
I
little
really
cousin
can't
of
think
hers
of any
had
other
already
way,
steeled his
unless,
heart to not care.
Speaking of this,
Outside the throne
the
room,
emperor
the
hesitated.
civil and military
Old Man
officials had
Qin
already
said,
left,
Unless
leaving
what?
only the eunuch
Suddenly,
outside the door.
Old Man
Shua.
Qin seemed to think of something
Suddenly,
and said in surprise,
Old Man Qin
Your
and the
Majesty,
commander of the Kirin
are you
army
talking
arrived.
about the divine order
The
left
eunuch
by
was
the
about
late
to
emperor?
scold him,
But when he
Yes.
saw Old Man
The emperor
Qin,
nodded.
he immediately bowed
The
and
divine
said,
order was
Greetings,
personally
Old Man
refined by the
Qin.
late emperor.
That
It
old
can
man
block
is
all
here,
the detection of the world.
in the hall, but the
Hearing
divine
the
order
voice
can
of the
only
eunuch,
be opened once.
Zhuge Wuho's
When the late
expression
emperor
changed.
left this divine
The
order,
soundproof
his
barrier
intention
set up
was
by
to
the
protect
imperial
the last
tutor
trace
was
of
to
the
prevent
bloodline
others
power
from
of the Qin
eavesdropping
clan
on
when
their
the great
discussion.
Qin was in danger.
Therefore, they could clearly
In
hear
other
the
words,
sounds coming
this
from
divine
outside.
order is the last
Don't
life-saving
panic.
talisman of
The
the great
imperial
Qin.
tutor waved his
The
hand.
previous emperors were
dispelled the
not
barrier,
willing to use
and
it.
nodded to Zhuge
So
Nanhua.
your Majesty, you have
Zhuge
to think
Nanhua
twice.
understood and
Old
immediately
Man
took an
Qin bowed
illusory
and said,
form pill.
The emperor
Turning
said,
into the appearance
Then
of the
tell me,
emperor.
besides the divine
Outside,
order, what else
Old
can
Man
help
Qin
me?
glanced at the
Yes.
eunuch,
Walked
walked
to
to
Qin
door,
Feiyong
and kicked it open.
If Qin
When he
Feiyong
saw the
is
emperor
willing to
sitting
help,
on the dragon throne,
no one can hurt
his
you,
eyes
Your
were
Majesty.
filled with killing intent.
Old Man Qin
At the
said.
same time,
Seeing Old Man
the
Qin's
emperor
anger,
snorted and said,
the eunuch was
If
about
I
to
ask
stop
him for help,
Where will
scram.
my face go?
Old Man
Besides,
Qin suddenly shouted
do you
angrily,
think with his character
and a
he
wisp
will
of
help
divine
me?
might rushed
Old
over.
Man Qin
The
frowned
eunuch
and wanted
quivered
to
and
say
quickly
something,
turned around to
but
run.
he didn't say it.
What is going on?
Enough.
Seeing
I have
this
decided
scene,
to open
the commander
divine
of the Kirin
order.
army behind
The
Old Man
emperor
Qin
said
became more and more
expressionlessly.
surprised.
Then a stream
Old
of
Man
light
Qin
rushed out
stepped
from
into the
between his
throne room.
eyebrows and
The
floated in
commander
front
of the
two.
Kirin army also
Shockingly,
prepared to follow
it was a
in.
purplish gold
But the
token.
imperial tutor
The
waved his
token
hand,
was the size of
and
an
the door
adult's
closed
palm
with a
and
bang,
was glowing with a
directly
hazy
blocking
purple
the
gold
commander of
divine
the
light.
Kirin army outside.
On the front of the token,
Following
there was
that,
a statue of a god.
He waved his
The
hand
statue
again,
was of a
and the
middle-aged
soundproof
man.
barrier appeared again.
He held the broken
What's
sword
wrong?
in his hand and
Are
looked
you
askance
afraid
at the
that
heavens.
others will know?
Like a divine
Old Man
king,
Qin sneered.
his aura covered the
The
clouds.
imperial preceptor
That's
smiled
right.
faintly and said,
What is there to
This
feel
was the
guilty
statue
about?
of the first emperor.
Old Man Qin
On the
sneered
other
as he
side,
looked at Zhuge Nanhua,
there was a
who
purple
was sitting
gold
on
divine
top.
dragon.
His
It was
entire
lifelike,
body emitted a
and one could
monstrous
even
aura.
feel a strong sense
You
of
think you
oppression.
can sit in this seat?
Your Majesty,
Get out.
Do you really
In a
want to do
flash,
this?
Old Man Qin appeared in
Qin
front
frowned.
of Zhuge Nanhua
I
and
have
slapped
no
him across
choice.
the face. The emperor murmured, and the golden
with a
dragon
blood-curdling
battled poured
scream,
into the divine
Zhuge
order.
Nanhua was
With
sent
a
flying
buzz,
and crashed
the
into a
divine
stone
order
pillar.
shone brightly.
Blood spurted out
Following
from his
that,
mouth.
With a
The
crack,
imperial
the
tutor
divine
and Zhuge
order
Wuho
shattered and
were
turned
shocked.
into specks of
The
crystal
next
light
moment,
that merged into the
the
emperor's
two of
body.
them ran to Zhuge
Immediately,
Nanhua's side.
The emperor's
Zhuge
entire
Wuhou
body
supported
began to
Zhuge
emit a bright
Nanhua.
purple gold
The
divine
imperial
light.
preceptor glared
Old
at
man
Old Man
Qin
Qin
sighed
shouted,
deeply.
"What's
Thing,
done is done.
Have you eaten the guts of a leopard?"
He didn't say
How
anything
dare
more
you
and
slap His
silently
Majesty
retreated
to the side.
Your Majesty
Time
passed by breath.
Old man Qin's
The
hair
purple
stood
gold
up in
divine
anger as he
light
said,
said,
"The emperor's body
"The one who ate
gradually
the guts of a
converged.
leopard is you."
About
100 breaths passed.
You
When
actually
the
dared
last
to
wisp
let
of
someone
purple gold
impersonate
divine
His
light
Majesty.
faded.
The
How
emperor
should you be
returned to his
punished?
previous appearance
The
and
imperial
didn't seem to have
preceptor's
changed at
heart
all.
skipped a beat.
But
Mu Qin,
he frowned
who
and
was in the
said,
distant state
"What did you
capital,
say?"
suddenly
What do you
changed
mean
his
by
expression.
impersonating His
What's
Majesty?
wrong?
In the space
Still
divine
playing
object.
dumb?
Old
Noticing
Man
the
Qin
change in Mu
sneered,
Qing,
took out a facial
Lu
restoration
Xingqian
pill,
asked in
threw it at
surprise.
Zhuge Nanhua's
Mu
feet,
Qing said in
and said,
surprise,
"Whether it is an
I've been looking for
impersonation
the
or
emperor
not,
with my
you will
heavenly
know
eye.
after consuming this
Although I
facial
can't find his
restoration pill."
exact location,
I
Zhuge
can still
Nanhua
spy
looked
on
at
the
him,
facial
but
restoration
just
pill
now,
and looked at the
I
imperial
suddenly couldn't
preceptor
see
in
anything.
panic.
Zhuge
What?
Wuho's face
Lu
was also
Xingqian's
filled with
expression
fear.
changed and he
How
frowned.
could old man
How
Qin
could
be
this
so
be?
sure that the
I
emperor
don't know.
was an
Mu
impersonation?
Qing shook his
One
head and
had to
said,
know.
"But there's
The
only
emperor
one
had been
possibility
killed and
for
his
this to
life
happen."
and death were unknown.
What possibility?
No one
Lu
knew where he
Xingqian
was.
asked. However,
He's dead.
the moment old
Only
man
when
Qin
he's
entered
dead
the
will
room,
my heavenly eye fail.
he immediately
Mu
concluded
Qing
that the
said,
emperor in front of him
dead.
was an
Lu
impersonator.
Xingqian's body
This was
stiffened
too
and
strange.
asked,
Is it
could it
possible
be?
that you've been opening your
Suddenly,
heavenly eye for a
the
long
imperial
time,
preceptor,
causing it to fail?
Zhuge Wuho,
No.
and Zhuge
Mu
Nanhua's
Qing
eyes
shook
trembled
his
at the
head.
same time.
How could he be
Could
dead?
it be that old man
Lu
Qin knew
Xingqian's
where the real
face was
emperor
full of
was?
disbelief.
What are you
Suddenly,
waiting for?
He shuddered
Quickly
and said,
consume the facial
"Qin Fei Yong
restoration
is also
pill.
in the spiritual
True
state.
gold is not afraid
Let's
of
see
fire.
where he and Elder
If you
Qin
are really
His
Majesty,
Yes,
this old man
Mu
is willing
Qing
to die
nodded.
for my previous
By the lake.
recklessness."
Elder Qin
Old man
asked,
Qin shouted,
"Your Majesty,
looking
where
at
do
old
you
man
plan to go
Qin's
now?"
sinister eyes. Now that I have the
Zhuge
divine
Nanhua's heart
edict,
was filled with
it
panic,
doesn't matter where
and
I
his
go.
body couldn't help but
But
tremble.
you plotted against
Ha ha.
Qin Fei Yong.
The imperial
When he
preceptor
wakes
raised
up,
his head and
he will
laughed out
definitely
loud.
not let it go.
Old man Qin's
How do you
gaze
plan
turned
to
and
deal with
landed
it?
on the imperial
The
preceptor.
emperor said,
His old eyes
I
were
have
filled
my
with
ways.
bone-piercing killing
However,
intent.
there's a problem
the
that I
imperial
don't know
preceptor
how to
stopped
solve.
laughing and looked at old man
Elder
Qin.
Qin said,
"Since you have been
What's the
discovered,
problem?
then there is no need
The
to hide
emperor
anymore."
asked, Consume
Elder
the
Qin
facial
said,
restoration
"Your Majesty
pill."
left.
The
The
imperial
imperial capital will
nodded,
be in chaos
grabbed
sooner
the
or
facial
later.
restoration
Who
pill
will
and
manage
threw it
the
into his
imperial
mouth.
court then?
Very quickly,
Whatever.
his true appearance
Anyway,
was restored.
the imperial jade
Seeing
seal
this,
is in my hands.
Old man Qin
No one
clenched
can
his
take
fists
away
and
my
said
throne.
coldly.
The
You
emperor
guys are really
snorted,
daring.
his eyes
Wrong.
flashing coldly.
The one who is daring
I'm
is you.
afraid that when
Because
your
you are the
Majesty
one who
returns,
kidnapped the emperor.
things will have changed.
Hurry up and
Elder
tell me.
Qin sighed.
Where is the emperor
Then
now?
let's wait and see.
The imperial
The
preceptor
emperor smiled
shouted.
coldly,
Heard of
then
it.
took a step forward.
Old man
Step
Qin's
by
body
step,
stiffened
and
as he
gradually
cursed in his
disappeared
heart.
from Elder
In a
Qin's
moment of
sight.
anger, he had
Sigh.
actually overlooked this point.
Why
Without
is it
even
that I
asking,
can't see through you
he
now?
directly attacked
Actually,
Zhuge Nanhua.
I have a lot to say to your
Wouldn't
Majesty,
this expose
but
the
I don't
fact
dare
that
to
he
say
knew
it.
the whereabouts of the
Looking
emperor?
at the direction
No.
where the emperor
He
disappeared,
couldn't admit
Elder
it.
Qin sighed.
Old man Qin
His
muttered
face
to
full of
himself,
melancholy,
looked at the imperial
throughout the whole
preceptor and
process.
sneered.
The conversation
After
between
being
the two
together
was
for
carried
so
out
many
in
years,
secret.
this old
So
man
Lu
only
Zhang,
realized
who
now
was in
that
the
you are
castle,
actually such
did
a
not get
shameless
any
person.
useful information.
What do you mean?
After a long time,
The imperial preceptor
Elder
raised
Qin
his
waved his
eyebrows,
hand,
and the
you let
barrier
Zhuge
disintegrated
Nanhua
and
impersonate
dissipated
His
between
Majesty.
heaven and earth.
But in the end,
Just
this
as
old
the
man
barrier
saw through it and
dissipated,
wanted to bite
Mu
back,
Qing's eyes
saying
lit
that this
up.
old man
She
kidnapped
looked
His
at Lu
Majesty and
Xingqian
wanted
and
to
said,
kill this old man.
I found Elder
How
Qin.
can your heart
be so vicious?
Where?
Lu Xingqian asked anxiously.
Old man Qin
Mu
shouted
Qing
angrily.
said, Iron
A
Ox
bunch of
Town,
nonsense.
in front of the lake where
The
Qin Fei
imperial
Yong used to
preceptor
live.
also glared at
Why
him.
is he there?
Don't talk
Lu
nonsense.
Xingqian was surprised.
Impersonating His
He
Majesty
immediately
will
left
lead
the
to the
space divine
extermination
item,
of 9
opened the portal,
generations,
and descended above the lake.
Immediately bring Zhuge Nanhua and Zhuge
Elder
Wuho.
Qin immediately
Follow
sent
this old
Lu
man to the back
Xingqian's
mountain
aura.
of the imperial palace.
He looked up,
and wait for
and there
Emperor
was a
Hong
hint
to
of
deal with
murderous
them.
intent in
Old
his
man
eyes.
Qin said,
He came really fast.
Emperor Hong.
Where's the
Hearing
emperor?
this name,
Lu
Zhuge
Xingqian
Nanhua and
glanced at the
Zhuge
lake
Wuho's
and
bodies
asked
and
Elder
minds
Qin.
trembled, and their
The
eyes
emperor?
were filled with despair.
Elder Qin was slightly
Emperor
stunned
Hong.
and puzzled.
The
Aren't you
imperial
looking for
preceptor
him?
muttered.
Why?
But suddenly,
You didn't
the
find
imperial
him?
preceptor smiled
Elder Qin,
playfully,
we're
looked
all
at
sensible
Yiglao,
people.
and mocked.
Why are you playing
Exterminate
dumb?
9 generations?
Lu
Don't
Xingqian's
be so
eyes
naive.
flashed with anger.
I'll tell you the truth.
Playing dumb?
This imperial
I don't
preceptor has already
understand.
obtained the permission
I'm
of
also
Emperor Hong
looking
to
for
do
His
this.
Majesty. What do you mean by
Old
playing
man
dumb?
Qin's body stiffened,
Elder
and he
Qin
said in
said.
shock and anger,
Lu Xingqian
How is
raised
that
his
possible?
eyebrows and glanced at the lake.
Obtain the permission of
Suddenly,
Emperor Hong?
he saw the fishing
Zhuge
rod by the
Wuho
lake.
and Zhuge Wuho were
His
also
eyes
stunned,
flashed, and
and
he
then
said,
hurriedly looked at the
Let's not
imperial
talk about the
preceptor
emperor
and
first.
asked,
Where's
this
Qin
true?
Fei Yong?
The imperial
Castle.
preceptor nodded.
Elder Qin
The two
said.
of them were overjoyed,
Lu Xingqian
and their
glanced at the
suspended
void and
hearts
said,
were finally
Qin
put
Fei
down.
Yong, come out.
The imperial preceptor Preceptor glanced at Zhuge Wuhou and Zhuge Wuhou, then looked
Chapter
at the Imperial Preceptor and
1354.
said in a deep voice,
Inside the castle.
Emperor Hong definitely
Lu
wouldn't
Zheng
allow you to
frowned
do
when
such
he
a
heard
thing.
Lu
How can
Xingqian's
you prove
voice.
it?
Then, do you want
he
to
looked
prove
down
it?
at Qin
This
Feiyang.
Imperial
Time
Preceptor will
passed
give
by
it to you.
slowly. The Imperial
Suddenly,
Preceptor smiled
Qin Feiyang's
contemptuously,
eyelids moved
and a
he
golden
slowly
light
flew
opened
out
his
from
eyes.
his qi.
He felt a
landing
tearing
in front
pain
of old
in his
man
head.
Qin.
Elder It was a piece of golden paper. This intense pain
as if it was
caused him to
cast from
immediately
gold,
recall what had happened
flickering with
before,
divine light.
and his entire
On
body
it,
instantly
there was only
emitted a
one big
monstrous
word.
vicious aura.
Hong. Swish.
But this word,
He
like
suddenly
iron
got
hooks
up,
and silver
rubbed the
strokes,
back of his head,
carried a
and
great
waved
majesty,
his hand.
directly
An
pressing
image
down
appeared.
on old man Qin's
Where's
heart.
the Emperor?
The Imperial
Seeing
Preceptor
only
sneered,
Elder Qin and
"You
Lu
also
Xingqian in the
recognize
image."
Emperor Hong's
Qin
words,
Feiyang
so
raised his
confirm it
eyebrows
properly
and
see
asked
if it was
Lu
written
Zheng.
by Emperor Hong
I
himself,
don't know.
so as to
I
avoid
didn't hear
slandering this
anything
Imperial
before.
Preceptor again.
The conversation between
Old
the
man
Emperor
Qin
and
did
Elder
not seem
Qin
to
shift be in the dark.
Looking at the word
Lu
Hong
Zhang
on the
said,
paper,
Damn it.
his old
Qin
face was
Feiyong
filled with
cursed
disbelief.
angrily. He
Why?
didn't expect
Why
Elder
is this
Qin to
so?
sneak attack him.
Such an absurd
Lu
thing,
Zhang
Emperor Hong.
comforted
Why
him.
did you agree to it?
Don't worry,
he muttered to himself,
when we
his
return
heart
to the
in chaos.
capital,
The
I will
Imperial
immediately
Preceptor
find the
stepped
Emperor.
forward,
But why
snatched
did
the
you faint
paper,
just now?
and carefully kept it in his
It's Elder
Qi.
Qin.
Then he
Qin
looked at Old Man
Feiyong's
Qin
eyes
proudly
filled with
and
coldness.
said, Tell me, how
So
is your
it's
mood
him.
now? In that case,
This old man doesn't
he
believe
already
it.
knew that the Emperor
This
was in
old
the
man will
spiritual
ask
state.
Emperor
Hong in
He
person.
was just acting
Old
with
Man
us.
Qin said.
Lu Zhang said in
Whatever.
realization.
The Imperial
Qin
Preceptor
Feiyong
smiled
sneered.
coldly.
The next
Old
moment,
Man Qin looked at him deeply.
he appeared beside
then
the
waved
lake
his
and
hand,
glanced at Elder
shattering
Qin.
the enchantment
Then
set up by the
he looked
Imperial
up at Lu
Preceptor.
Xingchen. Then he
He
opened the
pointed at Elder
teleportation
Qin
door,
and said with a
turned
murderous
around,
aura,
and walked in.
Let's not talk
When
nonsense.
the teleportation door
Let's
dissipated,
join hands
the
and kill
Imperial
him.
Preceptor set up
Ha!
another
Lu
soundproof
Xingchen
enchantment. Was shocked. Elder Qin's expression also
Zhuge Wuho and
changed.
Zhuge Wuho
He hurriedly
immediately
said,
ran in front of the
Qin
Imperial
Feiyong,
Preceptor and
listen
asked
to
in
my
surprise,
explanation.
Old Ancestor,
What's there to
was
explain?
that really written by Emperor
Qin
Hong
Feiyong
himself?
smiled coldly.
Of course.
He looked at
The
Lu
Imperial
Xingchen and
Preceptor
waited for Lu
nodded.
Xingchen's
The two
reply.
of them looked at each
Lu
other.
Xingchen looked
Their
at the two
faces
of them
full of
suspiciously.
disbelief.
What's
Zhuge
going
Nanhua
on?
asked curiously.
Did something happen
Old
before he
Ancestor,
came?
how did you
Elder
convince
Qin
Emperor
glanced at
Hong?
Lu Xingchen and
This
secretly
matter is a
transmitted
long
his voice
story.
to Qin Feiyong.
When there is time,
if I really wanted
this
to kill
old man
you,
will
you
slowly
wouldn't have
tell
just
you.
fainted.
Now,
Wake up.
go and do something
Killing me
for
won't
me.
do you any
The
good.
Imperial Preceptor
Qin
said.
Feiyong said.
His
Then
eyes
why did
filled
you
with
do
cold
that?
killing intent.
Elder Qin said, What is
He
it?
is the Emperor of
The
the
two
Great
of them
Qin.
asked.
I must protect him.
The Imperial Preceptor said,
Is that all?
Kill people.
Qin
The more the
Feiyong's
better.
expression.
This old man wants
Yes.
to use them to
I didn't
refine
tell
blood
him a
fiend
single
pills
word
and
about
increase
what
the
happened
strength of our
between you
Zhuge
and
family
me.
as soon as possible.
I didn't betray you.
Yes, please
The
believe
two
me.
of them respectfully
Old
replied.
Qin said with a pleading
Their eyes
tone.
filled with a
Qin
bloodthirsty
Feiyong
light.
thought to himself,
The Imperial
when
Preceptor
did the Emperor
continued.
come to the spiritual
In
state?
addition, you
When
must
you
protect
came back
the little
from the
prince
continent.
well. This
Old
child
Qin
is now a
said,
treasure,
I
and
see.
there cannot be the
He
slightest
entered the
mistake.
spiritual state after I
Understood.
humiliated Zhuge Nanhua.
The two of them nodded.
Qin said,
Also, as long as
Yes.
the Emperor's corpse is
After
not
you threw
found,
Zhuge Nanhua
this old
into
man's
the central
heart will
square
not
of
be
the
at
first
ease.
district. You
The
must
pagoda
find
was
his
unguarded.
corpse as soon as possible.
His Majesty
the
took this
Imperial
opportunity to
Preceptor
come to
said,
spirit state.
The great Qin Empire
Elder
is so
Qin
big.
said,
How do we
Why
find
did
it?
he come to
spirit
the two
state?
of them frowned.
Why did he
Pay
pretend to
attention
be
to
killed?
Old Man Qin.
Don't tell me
This
you don't
old man
know.
has a feeling
Qin
that he knows the
Feiyong
whereabouts
secretly
of the
said,
Emperor. This
This
damned old thing.
Elder Qin
Always
hesitated
going
and
against this
transmitted
old
his
man.
voice. When
I
this
can't
old
tell
man
you for
ascends
now,
to the
but
throne,
please believe me.
the first thing
I
I will
really
do
don't
is want
want
to
to
harm you.
The Imperial Preceptor coldly
Qin Feiyong's
snorted.
eyes flashed
His
coldly.
killing intent
He
bone
must be
chilling.
hiding something from
Then
me.
what if the Emperor
Seeing
is not
Qin
dead?
Feiyong and Elder
Zhuge
Qin
Wuho
looking at
said.
each other in
The
silence,
Imperial Preceptor did not
Xingchen knew that
hesitate
the
and
two
laughed
must be
sinisterly.
secretly transmitting their
It was
voices.
not easy to take this first
Suddenly,
step.
This
His
old man
eyes
does not
flashed
want
and
to
he
turn
smiled.
back. So
Brother
the Emperor
Qin,
must die.
it's not easy to kill him.
Zhuge
But as long
Wuho
as you're
and
willing to
Zhuge
lend me
Wuho
Chong
looked at
Xue,
each other.
I have full
Bowed to the
confidence.
Imperial Preceptor.
Clang.
And turned to
Chong
walk in front of
Xue
the barrier.
immediately appeared
The
in
Imperial
Qin Feiyong's
Preceptor
hands.
waved his hand.
And a door of light
Lu
appeared on the
Xingchen
barrier.
was secretly
The two of
delighted.
them walked out of the
Getting
door of
rid
light.
of Elder Qin
Opened
was
equivalent to
teleportation
getting
door
rid of one of the
and
pillars
left
of the
together.
Great Qin
The
Empire.
Imperial Preceptor
It would
waved his
undoubtedly
hand
be
again,
easier to
and the
destroy
door
the
of
Great
light
Qin
quickly
Empire in the
closed.
future.
Then, at the
He
same
turned
time,
around and looked
Elder
at the dragon's
Qin's body
throne above.
tightened and he said
After a
angrily in
moment
his
of
heart,
silence,
Qin
he walked
Feiyong,
towards the
don't
dragon
mess
throne
around,
step by
okay?
step.
You'll
And a
only
smile
hurt your
appeared
loved
on his
ones
old
and delight
face.
your enemies
As
by
he got
doing
closer,
this. The smile
Do
on
I
his
have
face
any
became
relatives
brighter
in the
and
Great
brighter.
Qin Empire?
Finally,
Qin
he
Feiyong
stood in
looked at
front
him
of the dragon
coldly.
throne,
Elder
stretched
Qin
out
was
his
stunned.
hand, and
That's
gently
right.
stroked the
Did
armrest of the
Qin
dragon
Feiyong
throne.
have any relatives?
Gradually, in the past,
His arm
he
couldn't
did,
help but
and
tremble.
that was Qin
At this
Feiyong's
moment,
mother.
a strong
But now,
desire crawled
Qin
up in his
Feiyong's
eyes.
mother had disappeared
Suddenly,
without a trace.
The Imperial Preceptor
As for the
turned
others,
around and
they
sat
were
upright
basically
on
the
the dragon
dragon
throne,
Qin Feiyong
looking
hated the
down at the
most.
hall below with
It
a
could be
blazing
said that there was
gaze.
no one in the
In a
Great Qin
trance,
Empire that Qin Feiyong cared about.
He seemed
Sigh.
to have already seen
Old
the
Qin
scene of
sighed
all the
deeply
civil
and
and
said,
military officials
"If killing
kneeling
me can
down
calm
and
the
worshipping
rage in your
him.
heart,
The
then
first
do
step
it.
has been
But
successful.
don't forget the promise you made
Next
to
is
me
the
in the
second
past
step.
to protect the Grand
Just
Qin
wait.
Empire
and
It
its
won't be
citizens.
long before the great Qin
With
Empire
that,
changes its name.
he closed his
My
eyes and
Zhuge
had no
family will
intention of
eventually
resisting.
rule this territory.
Swoosh.
Lu Xingqian's
I,
eyes
Zhuge
flashed as he took a
Xinyun,
step forward
will
and
also
landed in
replace
front of
Qin
Qin Feiyang
Batian,
and become the number
reaching
one
out to
emperor of
Chang
Chang
Shui.
Shui.
But
Those
suddenly,
who obey me will prosper.
Qin Feiyang's
Those
mind
who oppose
moved,
me will die. And Chang Shui turned into a stream of light and disappeared into his energy reserve.
Lu Xingqian grabbed
Chapter
nothing and frowned.
1359. What do you mean?
Dong. Can't
Suddenly,
I change my mind?
There was a knock on
Qin
the door.
Feiyang
looked at
the
him
imperial
indifferently.
tutor raised his
Lu
eyebrows and his
Xingqian went
eyes
berserk
flashed
and said
coldly.
angrily, he stood
Are
up
you
from the
messing with
dragon
me?
throne and walked
Aren't
into
you
the
messing
hall.
with me too?
He removed
You
the
knew that the
soundproof
emperor
barrier
was in
and
the
said,
spiritual state.
Come in.
But you
The
didn't
door
tell
was
me.
pushed open.
Tell me.
The
What are
commander
your
of the
intentions?
Kirin army
stood outside the
Qin
door and
Feiyong
scanned the hall
sneered.
suspiciously.
Lu Xingqian was
What's the
furious.
matter, Commander?
Since
The
you're going
Imperial
against me,
tutor smiled.
don't blame me for
The
being
commander
ruthless.
of the Kirin army
The
quickly
conditions
entered
I
the hall
promised
and
you in the
bowed.
Bright Sky
Greetings,
Palace are
Imperial
nullified.
tutor.
Qin
May I
Feiyong
ask
said.
where His Majesty is?
Nullified.
The Imperial
Hearing
tutor
this,
said.
Lu Xingqian was
His
about to go
Majesty
crazy.
has gone into seclusion
Qin
to
Feiyong
cultivate.
didn't pay any
You can
more
report
attention
to
to
me
if
him.
there's anything.
He looked at old man Qin
Nothing
and said,
much. And
It's
you,
just that I
don't
haven't
talk to
seen
me
His
about
Majesty
promises
for a long time,
Promises
and I
are
miss
built
His
on the
Majesty.
foundation of trust.
The commander of the
But
Kirin
now,
army
you've
smiled.
betrayed the trust
The
between
Imperial
us.
tutor smiled and said,
Trust.
The
Are you
commander
sure
is
you've
loyal to
trusted
His
me
Majesty.
completely?
It's
Elder
really a
Qin
blessing
said
for the great
angrily.
Qin. I
But
admit
there
that
was
I
a
didn't
trace
trust
of
you
killing
completely,
intent in his
but
smile.
from the beginning to the end,
In fact,
I've never
a
done
long
anything
time
to
ago,
betray you.
he personally
This
looked for the
time,
commander
you
of the
started
Kirin
it
army
first.
and wanted to recruit him as his
So, in the
confidant.
future, I won't
After
interfere
all,
in anything.
The commander
Even
of the
if the
Kirin
great
army
Qin Empire
controlled the
really
entire
changed his
Kirin
hands.
army.
If he
After
could recruit
Qin
the
Feiyong
commander of the
finished
Kirin army
speaking,
and the
Lu
invincible Black
Xingqian
Army,
and Lu Zhang
then
heard
the
him
entire
without sending a
Imperial
voice
Palace would be under
transmission.
his control.
After speaking,
The
he
commander
opened the
of the
portal and
Kirin
turned to
army was
leave.
too loyal to
This
the Emperor.
time, no
He was
matter
really
what conditions
disheartened
he
and
offered,
tired of these schemes.
he would not agree.
He didn't want
If
to
he
care
couldn't
about those
recruit
trivial
him,
matters
then
anymore.
he could only eliminate
Elder
him.
Qin looked at
But
Qin
in the
Feiyong's
past,
back with
it was
bitterness in his
inconvenient
heart
for him to
do it
Lu
because the
Xingqian
Emperor was
raised his
there.
eyebrows,
But now,
glanced at
he
Elder
could do
Qin,
whatever he wanted
and followed
no
him
one
into the
could
space
stop him.
artifact. If
He
there's nothing
immediately
else,
became
I'll
furious
take
and
my
roared,
leave.
The commander of the Kirin army looked at
My
the
lord,
Imperial
please
tutor.
calm down.
His eyes
Mu
flashed
Qing
slightly
bowed.
and he cupped his
It
hands.
wasn't easy to get
After
Qin
that,
Feiyong to agree to my
he turned
conditions,
and walked out without
but it's
waiting for the
nullified just
Imperial
like that.
tutor's response.
How can I not be angry?
He was so eager to
Lu
leave,
Xingqian
not
roared.
because he saw the
His
killing
original
intent in the
plan was to
Imperial
find the
tutor's
Emperor
eyes,
and then
but
control
because he
him.
felt
In
uncomfortable
this
being
way,
alone
the
with the
great
Imperial
Qin
tutor.
Empire would become the
Wait,
Tianyang
the
Empire sooner
Imperial
or
tutor
later.
looked at the back
But
of
in
the
the
commander
end,
of the
he
Kirin
went for
army
wool and
and
came
suddenly
home
said,
shorn. The
Mu
commander
Qing's
of the
expression
Kirin
was
army
also
froze.
full of anger. He looked
This
back
matter
at the
is a little
Imperial tutor and
strange.
asked,
Lu
Do you have
Xingqian
any
said
other
in a deep
orders?
voice. Do you
Say
remember
it.
what I told you
If the
before?
Emperor is really here,
No, I'll
how
give
did
you
Qin
another
Feiyong
chance.
find him before
As long
us?
as you follow me,
Did Elder
I'll
Qin
let you
tell
enjoy
him?
endless
But
glory
looking
and
at
wealth.
his attitude towards
The
Elder
Imperial
Qin,
advisor
it seems
said,
that Elder Qin
My
didn't tell
lord,
him. This is the
So,
throne
I think
room.
there's a big mystery
Isn't it
here.
inappropriate
Mu
to talk
Qing
about
said,
this in the throne room?
That's right.
The Kirin army
You didn't
commander
find him
narrowed his
even with
eyes
the
and
all-seeing
asked
eye.
cautiously, So how did he find him?
Haha.
The
Although
Imperial
this is where
preceptor
Qin
laughed
Feiyong
and
used
shook
to
his
live.
head.
The
You're
Emperor
too
and Qin
naive.
Feiyong have a
Since
deep
you can't
hatred.
be used by me,
Who would
then
think
I
that
can
the Emperor
only-
would come here?
The Kirin
I'm
army's
afraid that
commander
even
felt a
Qin
strong
Feiyong
sense of
himself
uneasiness
wouldn't
before
think
the
of it.
Grand Master could finish his
Lu
words.
Xingqian's eyes
Without any
flickered.
hesitation,
Mu Qing said in
he
surprise.
turned and rushed out of
Could
the
it
door.
be that Qin Feiyong
You want to
also has
leave?
some treasure that can spy on the whereabouts of others?
The
Or
Grand
secret?
Master's face was full
This,
of sarcasm.
Lu Xingqian was
His
stunned.
divine power was
That's
like a
impossible,
waterfall,
right?
directly
If he really
imprisoning
has
the
it,
commander of the Kirin
then why
army
did he
in the
ask you to
void.
use the all-seeing eye to Imperial
find the
tutor?
Emperor? This is
This
Imperial
is also what I
Palace.
can't figure out.
What do you want to do?
Is it really a coincidence?
The commander of the Kirin
Mu
army
Qing
shouted.
frowned. Back
Since
to
you won't
Qin
obey,
Feiyong.
then this
He had
Imperial
already
preceptor
entered the
can only
secret
kill
chamber
you to
below
prevent
the
you from
Butterfly
becoming
Valley.
an obstacle to this
Without
Imperial
any delay,
preceptor in the future.
he opened the portal
The
and
Imperial
returned to the Bright
preceptor's
Sky
eyes
Palace.
were brimming with undisguised killing
he entered
intent.
the ancient castle
He had
and
heard
opened
of
the
it.
six-word
The
divine
commander
formula.
of the Kirin
Lu
army's
Zhang
heart
glanced
sank.
at him and went
The
forward to
Imperial
ask,
preceptor
Are
raised
you
the
really
corner
going
of his
to
mouth
ignore
and
it?
raised his arm.
Qin
The
Feiyong
false
nodded.
god power surged
Even
at the
if
tip
I
of
can
his
find the
index
Emperor's
finger.
whereabouts
Feeling
again,
the terrifying
Lu
killing
Zhang
intent
asked again.
The commander
There's
of the
no
Kirin
need.
army felt a chill
I'm
down his
tired.
spine.
Qin
He
Feiyong
couldn't
said.
help but feel despair.
Sigh.
Lu
He
Zhang
shouted,
sighed helplessly
I
and
surrender.
said, Send me
That's more
out.
like it.
Qin
This
Feiyong waved his
Imperial
hand
preceptor
without
likes
looking
people
back.
like you who can
Lu
adapt
Zhang
to the
disappeared
situation immediately.
The
Qin
Imperial
Feiyong
preceptor
also
laughed
began to copy
proudly
the
and
second
formed a
stroke
seal
with
with
both
both character
hands.
formula.
The Blood Soul
Great
technique
Qin
was
Empire.
formed.
In a remote
Blood Soul
village.
technique. Here.
The
There was
commander
no
of the
killing,
Kirin army's
no
expression
quarrel.
changed.
The villagers left
Although
early
the Blood
and
Soul
returned
technique
late.
was a secret
Farming
technique,
and reclamation, he knew
showing
a thing or two
peaceful
about
and
it.
peaceful atmosphere.
Whoosh.
The mark formed by the blood
At
soul
this
technique
moment,
entered the
in the
body
center
of the commander
village,
Kirin army.
in front of a wooden building,
And
the
old
commander
man
of the
in linen
Kirin
clothes
army
was half
screamed
lying
in
on a
pain.
shabby wooden
The
armchair,
imperial preceptor
holding
looked
an
at the
old
commander
cattail
of the
leaf fan
Kirin
in his
army
hand.
with a smile
The
on his
old
face.
man shook the cattail
Currently,
leaf fan to
he
drive away
controlled
the
the
heat
tribunal
while telling a
council
story
and
with
the
a kind
invincible
smile on his
army.
face. Now that
Next
he had
to
the
him,
Kirin army,
a group of
the great
teenagers
Qin
ranging
Empire
from
was
a few
basically
years
in his
old to a
pocket.
teenager
But
listened
just
with
as
great
the imperial
interest.
preceptor was
Little
feeling
stars would
complacent,
appear in their big
a sudden
eyes from
change
time to
occurred.
time.
The imperial
Swish.
preceptor's body shook
Suddenly,
violently
a
as he spat out a mouthful of blood.
beside
The old man
the
out of
majesty
thin
that
air.
imprisoned the commander
Brother
of the
Zhang.
Kirin army.
The group
Also
of teenagers
dissipated in an
immediately
instant.
got up and
The
surrounded the
commander
young
of the
man.
Kirin army
The
flew
young
into
man
the air
was
without
Liu Zhang.
hesitation and
Liu
fled in
Zhang
panic.
rubbed the head of a
But
teenager
in his
dotingly
heart,
and said with a
he
smile,
was extremely
"I have something
surprised.
to tell second
What was
grandpa
going
now."
on? You
He
guys
clearly
go and
felt
have
that he was
fun
about to be
first.
controlled by the Imperial Preceptor's
The
blood
group
soul
of teenagers
technique.
was very
But a
obedient.
mysterious force suddenly
Without
appeared in his
waiting for his
mind
voice
and
to
instantly
finish,
destroyed the
they ran
Imperial
away
Preceptor's blood soul
energetically.
technique.
The old man
How was
waved
this
the cattail
possible?
leaf fan and
In the
looked at
throne
Lu Zheng
room,
with a smile.
the Imperial Preceptor's
back.
face was filled
Lu
with
Zheng
disbelief.
nodded.
The old man glanced
This
at Lu Zheng's
situation is
expression and
exactly the
said,
same as when I
"You don't
controlled
look well.
Lei Bao. Did
Could
something
it be
happen
related
to Qin Feiyang
Yes.
again?
We had already
little
found the
bastard.
Emperor.
You
But
dare
Elder
to
Qin
ruin this
suddenly made a
Imperial
move and
Preceptor's
knocked
plan
out little
again
cousin.
and again.
Because
This
of this,
Imperial
little
Preceptor
cousin
will
was
not let
angry
you
and
off.
threatened not to
The
interfere in the
Imperial
affairs of the
Preceptor
Imperial
roared in his
Palace.
heart. Lu Zheng
He
said
then flew out of
helplessly.
the hall and stood
The
in
old
the air
man
above the
frowned,
throne
sat
room,
up and asked,
scanning the
"What
surroundings.
about the Emperor?"
Soon,
His whereabouts
he
are
found
unknown.
the commander of the
Lu
Kirin
Zheng
army.
said. Elder
He
Qin's
suddenly
approach
found
is
that the
too
commander of
unwise.
the Kirin army was
Even if
heading
he
in
wants
the
to help
direction
the
of the
Emperor,
Bright Sky
there are
Palace.
other ways. To the Bright
Why
Sky
would he
Palace
plot
against Feiyang.
With Feiyang's temper,
Could it be that
it's
the
already
commander
good
of the
that he
Kirin
didn't
army
turn
has
hostile
already
directly.
surrendered to Qin Feiyang? Second Grandpa sighed.
The Imperial
Who
Preceptor
said he
raised
didn't
his
turn
eyebrows
hostile
and did not pursue.
At that time, as
because
soon as
once
he woke
left
up,
the throne room,
he went to Lu Xingchen and
he would not
prepared to
dare
join
to attack
forces
the
to kill
commander of
Elder
the Kirin
Qin.
army again.
He even planned to
After
take
all,
over Chang Shui
the
and
commander
Lu
of the Kirin
Xingchen.
army held great
But
power
in the end,
and had an
for
important
some
position
reason,
in the
he
imperial
didn't do
capital.
that. If he were to be killed in
Elder
public,
Qin would have
it would
died
arouse
today.
criticism from others. Most importantly,
Chapter
it would attract the attention of those old monsters in the back mountain of the
Second
Imperial
Grandpa was
Palace. Stunned.
This was
He
not a
smiled
good
and
thing
said,
for the Imperial
Feiyang
Preceptor.
didn't attack Elder Qin,
Of course,
which means that
he
he
was
hasn't
not
lost
worried
his
that the
mind.
commander of the
It
Kirin
also
army
means
would
that he
spread the
hasn't
news.
really let it go.
Because the commander
He was
of the
just
Kirin
angry
army
when he
knew
said
his
that he didn't
methods.
care. He also knew that
Angry
even if he
words?
spread the news,
I don't think
not many
so.
people would
You
believe
didn't
him.
see how he
Qin
looked at that
Feiyang
time.
Open
Even
the door.
I was shocked.
I have something
He
to
didn't
see
seem
you.
to be joking at all.
Bright Sky Palace.
Lu Zheng
shook his
The
head and
commander of the
said.
Kirin army
Second
panted as he
Grandpa
landed in
smiled
front
and
of the
didn't
palace
say
and
anything
knocked
more.
hard on the door. He asked,
Qin Feiyang heard
"Then
it
why
from
did you
inside
come
the
back this
castle,
time?"
but he turned
Lu
a
Zheng
deaf
said,
ear. I want to
Bang.
see the Emperor's
The
whereabouts
commander of the
again.
Kirin army was burning
You
with
already said
anxiety.
that Feiyang doesn't care
He
anymore.
opened the door with a palm.
Is there still a
only
need
to
for
see
that?
that it was empty
We'll
inside.
talk about it later.
He ran into the
So
main
what if
hall
we
and
find
closed
the
the door,
Emperor?
shouting,
Kill him.
"I know you are in
I
the
think
castle.
Feiyang hasn't
Come out
figured out how
quickly.
to resolve his
I
grudges
really
with
have
the Emperor
something
yet.
important
to tell you. Second Grandpa
However,
said with a smile.
Inside the main hall,
I know that.
there was still a
but
dead
the Emperor's
silence except
behavior
for
this
the
time
commander
is
of the
too
Kirin
strange.
army's roar.
I think
Back
it's better to
mountain of the
investigate
Imperial
thoroughly
Palace.
in case of any
At a
accidents.
certain mountain stream,
Lu Zheng
there was a
said,
dense fog and a cold
Kid,
wind blew.
You've been with Feiyang
It
for a
seemed
while.
unfathomable.
How did you become
An old
as
man with
suspicious
white
as
hair
him?
walked out of the fog.
Second Grandpa
It
was old
speechless.
Qin. You don't
But at
say.
this moment,
Although he's my little
he
cousin,
staggered and his
I've learned
eyes
a
were
lot from him
lifeless.
during this period of time.
His two arms
Lu
hung
Zheng
weakly as if
chuckled.
he had lost his
Then
soul.
tell me,
What
have
should
you
I do?
learned? Second
He
Grandpa
muttered to
was
himself.
curious.
His
Lu
old
Zheng's
face full
face
of
darkened,
helplessness.
and he said,
He continued
Don't
to
change
walk
the
like
topic.
a walking corpse.
We're not talking about this
Unknowingly,
now.
He left the
Second
back mountain
Grandpa
and
smiled
entered the
helplessly,
Imperial
got
Palace
up and said,
"Unknowingly,
Okay,
I'll
he
go
came
and
to
take
the
a look
front of
again.
the Bright Sky Palace.
Take me with you.
Qin Feiyang
I've long
has
wanted
already
to see
left.
that mysterious
What is this
divine
old man
object
doing here?
Lu Zheng immediately
The
went
sins of
up
heaven
and
can
grabbed
be
Second
forgiven,
Grandpa's arm,
but the sins brought on
chuckling.
by oneself are the
No,
hardest to bear.
This is a secret
The situation
of our clan.
today is all
In the
caused by
world,
this old man.
No one knows about
If this
it
old
except
man
for
was
the
not
elders of our
careless
clan.
and let his majesty use the
Second
divine
Grandpa
order from the
shook his
beginning,
head.
how
Lu
could
Zheng
things be
asked,
like today?
"Then do Uncle
Old
Black
Qin
and my
shook his
brother
head
know
and
about
laughed
it?"
at himself. Of course
He
they
was
know.
ready to leave.
After all,
They
Qin
are the
Feiyang,
pillars of our
please
clan.
come out and see
Second
me,
Grandpa
okay?
said.
Suddenly.
What do you mean?
The voice of the
Lu
commander
Zheng
of the
was
Kirin
immediately
army
annoyed
came
and
from the
said,
Bright Sky
"Do
Palace.
you mean that I'm not a pillar of the clan?"
Old Qin was slightly
Second Grandpa
stunned and
said,
turned to look at
"I
the
don't
closed
know about
door.
the future.
Why
but at
was
least
the
not
commander
now.
of the Kirin army inside?
I'm heartbroken."
Old Qin
Lu
walked to the
Zheng
door with
snorted.
doubts and pushed it open.
Second Grandpa
The
glanced
commander
at him,
of the
then
Kirin
looked at
army
Lu
thought it
Zheng's
was
hand,
Qin Feiyang
which was
and
tightly
was
gripping his
overjoyed
arm,
and said,
"But it was old
Since you're
Qin.
sad, why don't
Old
you let
Qin
go?"
entered the main hall and
I
asked,
just won't let
"What
go.
are you doing here?
If you can be so ruthless, then chop off
Close
my
the
hand.
door first."
Lu Zheng
The commander
snorted
of
and
the
turned his
Kirin
head
army
away,
said,
looking
"Old
like a
Qin
rascal.
turned around and
Second
closed the
Grandpa
door.
felt helpless and
He
said,
then looked at the
"All
commander
right,
of the Kirin
all right.
army and said,
All right.
Looking
Since
at your
you've already
anxious
broken
look,
through to
did
the
something
combat
happen?
emperor realm,
The commander
it's
of the
good to let
Kirin
you
army said in a
experience
deep
it.
voice.
Just
Just now
you
in the
second
throne
grandpa.
room, the imperial
love you the
advisor was
most.
going to kill me.
Lu Zhang was
What?
overjoyed.
Old Qin's
He
body
even wanted to
stiffened and
kiss
said
the old
angrily,
man's face a few
How
times.
dare he kill the commander
The speed at which
personally
he
appointed
changed
by
his
His
attitude
Majesty?
was faster
Does
than
he
flipping
still
a
have
book.
the law in his eyes?
Second grandpa shook
The
his head
commander of the
helplessly.
Kirin army said,
With a wave of
when
his
His
palm leaf
Majesty
fan.
was here, the two of them
He
appeared in a
restrained
secret
himself.
passage. But now that His
Where is
Majesty
this?
is dead, I'm afraid that the
Lu
law is
Zhang looked
useless in
around
his
in
eyes.
surprise.
Under
We
the
can't
ground
let him
of our
continue
village,
like this.
as second grandpa
Otherwise,
spoke,
the imperial
he walked
palace will
towards
be in
the end of the
chaos.
tunnel. After old man Qin
After
finished
living here for
speaking,
so
he
many
scanned
years,
the hall surroundings
I
and
still
pleaded,
don't know that there's a
Qin
secret
Feiyong,
passage under
now
the
that
village.
the imperial palace is in
Lu
danger,
Zhang was
please help us out
dumbfounded.
for the sake of the late
Then
emperor.
he quickly chased after
Yes.
Second Grandpa.
We don't ask for anything
There are still
else.
many things that
We
you
just
don't
ask
know.
that you come out and
Second
suppress the
Grandpa
arrogance
smiled
of the
faintly.
imperial advisor.
Yes.
That
The commander
genius
of the
brother of
Kirin
mine
army
knows
said,
everything.
After
But I'm
waiting
like a
for a
blank
while,
piece of paper.
Qin
This
Feiyong
is the
didn't
difference in
respond.
treatment.
Old Qin said
I'm
angrily,
just wondering why
Do
I
you
was
want me
born
to
in the
kneel
Lu
down
family.
in front of you before you
How
agree?
unlucky.
The
Lu
commander
Zhang
of the
complained
Kirin army
unhappily.
turned around and
When
looked at old
second
Qin.
Grandpa heard this,
Seeing old
the
Qin's
veins on his
sad and
forehead
angry face,
bulged.
he frowned and
He
said,
flicked Lu
Old
Zhang's
Qin,
head
what's
with the
going
back of his
on?
hand.
Why did
Lu
Qin
Zhang
Feiyong
grimaced
suddenly
in
leave
pain,
us alone, looking aggrieved?
It's all my fault.
Is it because I haven't
Old
hit you
Qin
in so
sighed
long
and his
that your
face
skin
was
is
full of
itching for a
self-blame.
beating?
He then
Second
looked at the
Grandpa
void and
glared
said,
at him and continued
No matter how
walking
you blame
forward.
me, you can't
Bias.
just sit and watch in the
Lu
face of the
Zhang
big
groaned.
picture.
His face
Plop.
was full of
After
displeasure.
that,
After
old
walking
Qin really
for a
knelt
while,
down.
flames
This,
suddenly appeared
the
in front
commander of the
them.
Kirin army
Lu
was
Zhang looked at the
dumbfounded.
light curiously
Who was old
and
man
forgot about the
Qin?
pain in his head.
He actually put down his
He couldn't help
self-esteem and
but
face
quicken
to
his
kneel
pace.
down in front of Qin
Soon,
Feiyong. He saw
what
that
on
the
earth
light
had
came
happened
from the
that
grotto.
he didn't know about?
This is it.
The commander of the
Second
Kirin army
Grandpa
shouted
stopped
angrily.
in front of the grotto
Qin
and
Feiyong,
pointed down.
Old Qin has
Lu
already
Zhang
knelt
looked
down
in
in
front of you. The
What
grotto
else
was
do you
round
want?
and bottomless. As a subject of
Its
the great Qin
diameter was
Empire
more
and
than
the
100
successor of the late
feet.
emperor, it was like
How
a
can you
dark
ignore the
bottomless
crisis
pit
of the great Qin Empire,
exuding a mysterious
I'll
aura.
also kneel
in the
down
middle
in
of the
front of
grotto,
you.
dozens
Please
of
come
meters
out.
below.
With
There
a
was a
plop,
fiery
the
red
commander
mirror
of the
floating
Kirin
in
army
the air.
also knelt
The
down on
mirror
the
was
ground.
oval in shape
His
and was
face
the
full of
size of two
helplessness.
grown men's
Time
palms.
passed by
It
slowly.
flickered with
The
divine
hall
light,
gradually fell
making
into
the
a
grotto
dead
as bright as
silence.
day.
Old
The
Qin
frame
and the
of the mirror
commander of
was
the
made of
Kirin
a kind
army
of
were
crimson
suffering in their
divine
hearts.
iron.
Two
Whoosh.
fire phoenixes
Suddenly,
were carved on
a
it.
white figure
The
appeared in
power
front
of
of
the
them
divine
out of
beast could
thin
be felt
air.
from afar.
But it was not Qin
What's that?
Feiyong,
but
Lu
Lu
Zhang
Zhang
was surprised.
The two of them
The
looked up
sky
at
mirror.
Lu Zhang. Second
Old Qin
Grandpa
was
looked
naturally
at the divine
familiar
mirror.
with Lu Zhang. His eyes,
But the
which had
commander of the
always been
Kirin
calm and
army was
tranquil,
full of surprise.
were now filled with
Of
dazzling
course,
divine
he also
light.
knew Lu Zhang.
The sky mirror.
When the second grandpa
Lu
of the
Zhang
Lu
was
family
slightly
entered
taken
the
aback.
imperial palace to play chess with the
murmured,
state preceptor,
The name sounds
Lu
quite
Zhang
impressive.
was beside him.
I wonder
But
if it's
why was
really
this
that
person
powerful?
by Qin Feiyong side?
Second Grandpa snorted. The sky mirror
Where
can
is
see through the
Qin
laws of
Feiyong?
heaven and earth and
Old
peek at the
Qin
source of all
asked.
things. Lu Zhang
It is the
looked at
most
the two of them
precious
and
treasure
sighed.
in the world.
Old Qin,
Its
Commander,
power is
you'd
not
better
something
get
a
up
young boy
first.
like you can
My
imagine.
little cousin can't
Really?
accept such a big
Lu
gift.
Zhang was in disbelief.
If he doesn't come out,
Nonsense.
I won't get up.
Do I look like
the
a
commander
liar?
of the Kirin army
Second
shook his
Grandpa
head.
looked at him angrily.
Why do you have to do this?
Lu Zhang smiled. Phew.
Second Grandpa let out a long breath and calmed
Chapter
down.
1360.
He said, Please come out of
What?
seclusion
The
and revive
commander
the
of the
sky
Kirin
mirror
army
again.
was shocked.
His
He
voice
turned to
reached
look
the
at
bottom
Elder
of the
Qin
grotto,
and asked,
echoing
Do you know
deafeningly.
where His Majesty is?
Elder
There are
Qin
people
smiled
down
bitterly
there.
and shook his
Lu
head.
Zhang was surprised.
I don't know.
Elder
Elder
Grandpa,
Qin,
don't
we
treat
just
us like
revived
fools,
the sky mirror
okay?
not long ago.
You helped His
now
Majesty
you want us to
plot
revive
against
it
my
again.
cousin. Are you
How
going
could
to
you not
kill
know?
us?
Lu Zhang sneered. A
Plot
dissatisfied
against
voice
Qin
sounded from
Feiyong?
below the grotto.
What's going on?
Then,
The
10
commander
figures
of the
rushed up
Kirin
and
army
landed
was
beside the
confused.
sky mirror.
How many
These
more
10
things
people
were
were
these
old
people
and young,
hiding from
male
him?
and female.
Elder Qin
But they
said,
did not have any
I
aura.
admit that I was wrong.
If they were not
but His
standing in the
Majesty
void,
didn't tell me where he
one
was
would
going
think
before
that they
he
were
left.
mortals.
Really?
Lu Zhang
looked
looked at the 10 people in surprise.
Once a person
and said,
lost his integrity,
Second Grandpa,
it was
who are
difficult to
they?
trust him again.
Why do they all look
Elder
so
Qin
unfamiliar? I
Are
swear
they
that
the
if
old
I lie,
monsters of
I'll
our
be
Lu
destroyed.
family who have died?
Lu
Zhang furrowed his
Old
brow.
monsters? The
He
10
dared to
people
make
were
such
stunned.
a vicious oath.
They turned to
It
look at
seemed
Lu
that
Zhang.
Elder Qin really
Their
didn't
faces
know.
were dark,
Lu
and the
Zhang
veins
said,
on their foreheads
Then
were
why did His
bulging.
Majesty pretend to be
Second
dead and
Grandpa
leave
was
the
also
capital?
amused.
Don't tell me
One
you
had
don't
to
know
either. Even he did not
Pretend
dare
to be
too
dead?
presumptuous
The
with
commander
these 10
of the
people in
Kirin
front of
army
him.
looked at Elder
But
Qin
this little
in surprise.
bastard actually called
Elder
them old
Qin
monsters
felt
in
bitter.
front of these people?
He looked at
Newborn
Lu Zhang
calves
and said,
are really not
If I
afraid
say
of
I don't know,
tigers.
will you believe
Bang.
me?
There was
What
no
do you
suspense.
Lu
Lu
Zhang
Zhang was
asked.
hit again and
Old
cried
man
out in
Qin
pain.
let out a long sigh and
Second
said,
Grandpa said
Back
with a dark
then,
face.
This old man told
What old
Qin Feiyong monsters?
that the current His
Don't
Majesty
you have
is
any
completely
manners?
unpredictable.
Call him
Although
ancestor.
this old man can see that he
They
is
are
hiding a
indeed
lot of
those
things
old
in his heart.
monsters.
I
He
thought
has
they
never
were all
told
dead.
anyone. It turns
The
out that they
commander
are
of the
all
Kirin
alive
army
and
said,
well.
I can
Lu
prove
Zhang
that
pursed
because
his
I
lips,
also found out
looked
something.
at the 10 people
But
and
His
bowed.
Majesty didn't say anything.
Greetings,
And as a subject,
ancestor.
I didn't dare
Only
to
then
ask.
did the 10 people's
And I
expressions
also found
ease
that
up.
he doesn't trust
But
anyone,
suddenly, including
Lu
me.
Zhang rushed in
The
front of him,
commander of the
licked his
Kirin
face,
army
and said
added.
with a smile,
Lu Zhang couldn't help
Ancestor,
but
this
feel
is the
agitated.
first time we meet.
What on
Do you
earth
have
was
any
this
greeting
person trying to
gifts?
do? I am
Old
not
Man
greedy.
Qin said, 7
Call
or 8
Qin
divine
Feiyang
artifacts will be enough.
This old man has something
The 10
very
people's
important to tell
faces
him.
also darkened.
Lu Zhang
How
calmed
could the Lu
himself down
family
and
have
said,
such a descendant?
My little cousin can hear
7
you
or
from the
8
castle.
divine artifacts.
You can speak freely.
How dare he say that?
Old Qin
A
said
white-haired
in a
old
solemn
man,
voice.
the corner of
I
his
wonder
mouth
if you
twitched
guys have heard of
violently,
Emperor Hong,
looked up
this
at
person?
second grandpa, and said,
Emperor Hong.
Second grandpa,
Lu Zhang's
is he the
gaze
little
trembled.
guy called Lu Zhang
The
that you
face
often
of the
talk
Qilin
about?
army commander was
That's
also
him.
instantly filled with
Second
fear
grandpa
that could not
coughed
be
and
removed.
nodded.
That's
Whoosh.
not right.
Just as old
Didn't
man
you say
Qin
that
finished
this kid is
speaking,
very sensible?
Qin Feiyang appeared
Why does
out
it
of
look
thin
like
air,
that now?
his face
The
filled
old
with
man
shock.
in white frowned.
Seeing Qin Feiyang finally appear,
Ahem.
old man
Maybe he
Qin
was
and
too
old man
excited to
Qin
see
were
you and
overjoyed.
couldn't control himself.
Even his eyes were a little blurry.
Second grandpa said,
Qin Feiyang
looking
said,
very unnatural.
Get up. Kneeling
that
like
so?
this will shorten
The
my
old
lifespan.
man in white looked at him
The
playfully.
two of them then stood
Yes.
up. Qin
Second
Feiyang
grandpa
looked at
felt
old man
more and more
Qin and
guilty.
asked,
He
Why are
hurriedly
you mentioning
changed
the
Emperor
topic
Hong?
and said,
Let's
Old
hurry
man
up and
Qin
activate
said,
the Taoist
I
mirror
believe
to
you have
find the
received the
whereabouts
news
of
of
the
the
Emperor.
Imperial Advisor's actions
The old
in the
man in
throne
white
room,
looked
right?
at second grandpa
Qin
meaningfully,
Feiyang nodded,
waved his old hand
man
gently,
Qin asked,
and Lu Zhang
then
immediately
do you know
flew
who was
towards second
impersonating His
grandpa
Majesty?
uncontrollably.
Let's begin.
Qin Feiyang
The
frowned.
old man in white looked at the other 9 people. Everyone nodded and immediately
Old
spread
man
out,
Qin said word
forming
by
a circle around the Taoist
his
mirror.
eyes shining with a
Then,
cold light.
The 10 people
What?
looked at each other
His
and nodded
Majesty
at the
was
same time.
impersonated by Zhuge
Boom.
Nanhua.
10
The commander of
terrifying
the
divine
Qilin army
auras
was
immediately
once again
rushed out of the 10
dumbfounded.
people's bodies.
He looked at the
Then,
3 of them and
the
roared.
10 people
How
raised
many
their
more
arms and
things are you
pointed their
hiding from
index
me?
fingers at the
Don't
Taoist
worry.
mirror. You'll know everything later. The power
Old
of the
man
fake
Qin
gods
looked at the
suddenly
commander of the
emerged from
Qilin
their
army and
fingertips
said,
and rushed
then
toward
looked
the
at
Taoist
Qin
mirror
Feiyang
like a
and said,
tide. At that
Damn,
time,
there are
this
10
old man
fake
was very
gods.
angry and was ready to
I
kill
always
Zhuge
thought that the
Nanhua,
Lu
but do
family
you know, only has a few
everything
fake
the
gods on the
Imperial
surface.
Advisor did had
Sensing
already
the
been
amazing
approved by
divine
Emperor
aura,
Hong.
Lu Zhang was
Emperor
stunned.
Hong is not dead?
Second grandpa said
Lu
in a low
Zhang was
voice.
surprised.
I just said
Qin
that there are a lot
Feiyang
of
was
things
also
about the Lu
shocked.
family that you don't
Old
know.
man Qin said,
Lu Zhang
Yes,
glanced
Emperor
at second
Hong is
grandpa
not dead.
and suddenly smiled
He has
mischievously.
been cultivating in the back of the
Second
mountain.
grandpa,
But he
is
has
what
not
the old
appeared
man
for a long
said
time
true?
and does not care
Second
about the affairs
grandpa
of
was
the
a little
world.
annoyed and said
Everyone
expressionlessly,
mistakenly thought that he
What
had
do you
already
mean
passed
true?
away.
I don't
Qin
understand.
Feiyang's heart was immediately
Stop
set off by
pretending.
stormy waves.
That old man clearly said
He
that
knew
you
better
said
than
that I was
anyone
very
else the
sensible in
identity
front
of
of
this
them.
Emperor Hong.
Second grandpa,
Moreover,
in fact, not
you
only
still
was
feel
his
sorry
status
for me in
noble,
your heart,
his
right?
strength was also
Lu
extremely
Zhang laughed.
strong. He was
Yes,
a legendary
I do feel
peerless
sorry
figure.
for you.
It
But
was
who
no
told you to be
exaggeration
so
to say that even
disappointing?
the current emperor had
Do
to
you know
obey
why
an
I
order
said
from
that to
Emperor
them?
Hong. Second
It was
grandpa
indeed as
said
old
man
angrily.
Qin had said.
Why?
Many
Lu
people
Zhang
thought
was
that Emperor
curious,
Hong had already
because they
passed
have the
away.
divine arts
But
in their
who would have
hands.
thought that he was
This
still
old man
alive
is
and
saying
well?
this to leave a
The
good
commander
impression
of the
on you in
Qilin
their
army
hearts.
asked. Why
But
would
you
Emperor
revealed
Hong
your true
agree to
nature
such an
as soon as
absurd
you
act
saw
of the
them,
Imperial
and even
Advisor?
called them old monsters?
For this matter,
You're really
this old
bold.
man specially went to
Now,
find Emperor
I'm
Hong.
afraid that they are very
Emperor Hong
disappointed
said that
in
a
you.
family cannot be
Second
without a
grandpa
master
looked
for
at
a
him
day,
as if he had
and a
expected
country
better
cannot
from
be
him.
without a ruler for a
Oh,
day.
why didn't
Now
you
that
say
His
such a good
Majesty's
thing
whereabouts
earlier?
are unknown,
When Lu Zhang
we
heard
must
this,
prepare for the
it was
worst.
too late for regrets.
If His Majesty
Second
doesn't return
grandpa
or
rolled
dies
his eyes and
outside,
said,
your
Then
eldest
someone must
brother
take
is
over
not
the
like
throne.
you.
Old
When he
man
first
Qin
came to meet
said,
them,
he
the
was
commander
very
of the
mature
Qilin
and
army
steady.
frowned and said,
At that time,
if
they
that's
gave
the
him a
case,
divine art.
then we can let the little prince
Obviously.
directly inherit the throne.
Second grandpa
But
was
why let the
deliberately
Imperial
provoking
Advisor
him.
take over the
Oh
court
my
first?
God. My divine
On one
art.
hand, the
When
Imperial
Lu Zhang
Advisor
heard
is
that,
highly respected
his
and has
intestines turned
outstanding
green with
ability,
regret,
and he cried
no
out
one
in
is more
sorrow.
suitable than him.
Second grandpa
On the
gloated
other
and
hand,
said to himself,
Emperor Hong
but
also
don't
has
be
some
sad.
concerns.
They are not
Old
unreasonable
man
people.
Qin said,
As long as you
What
perform well in the
concerns?
future,
Lu
you will
Zhang
have a
asked.
chance.
Civil unrest.
Really?
Lu
If the little
Zhang was
prince
surprised
directly
and
inherits the
doubtful.
throne,
Yes.
it will
Second
inevitably
grandpa
cause a
nodded.
sensation.
Okay.
At that time,
I will perform
it may
well
even
and
shake the
strive to get the
foundation of the
divine
great
art.
Qin Empire. Lu Zhang clenched
After
his
all,
hands and nodded
the
heavily.
inheritance of the throne
What a
is
joke.
not a trivial matter.
Who didn't want a
It will
divine
involve
art?
a lot of things.
For the divine
Another
art.
thing,
Not
if the
to
little
mention
prince
performing
inherits
well,
the throne now,
even if he
what
had to
will
carry
happen
the
if the
shoes of
emperor
those 10
comes
10
back
old
alive
monsters.
in the future.
It didn't matter.
So there needs to be a transition period here. Chapter
Old Man Qin
1356. So it's like the
this.
Taoist mirror kept buzzing, and the divine light
In
became
order to
more
avoid
and more
causing
dazzling.
panic,
The
Emperor
two
Hong
fire
allowed the
phoenixes
imperial
on the
advisor
mirror
to let
frame
Zhuge
also seemed to
Nanhua
come
pretend to be
alive.
his majesty
They
and announce
circled
in
around the
public in the
Taoist
throne room
mirror,
that he would go into
flying
seclusion
and
to break
emitting
through to the
divine
false
power.
god realm.
Amazing. And with this
Liu
fake
Zhang
imperial
muttered.
edict, no one will
He
have
looked at the
any
10 people
objections to
again,
the imperial
and a touch
advisor
of
taking
surprise
over the
appeared
court.
in his eyes. Liu Zhang
He
suddenly
discovered that there were
said,
bean-sized
"That's
beads
right."
of sweat on the 10
Old Man
people's
Qin
foreheads.
nodded and said angrily,
Even his face
"But
was
Emperor
faintly
Hong
pale.
doesn't know the real
What's
purpose of the
going
imperial
on?
advisor."
Liu Zhang
The
looked at the 10
imperial
people
advisor
in
is simply
confusion.
using Emperor
One
Hong
had
to
to know
achieve
that
his
these were 10
ambitions.
false gods.
Qin
10
Feiyang said
false gods
indifferently,
working together
"You
was
can
still
tell
so
Emperor
difficult.
Hong that the emperor
He
is not
swallowed and
dead.
asked in a low
If
voice,
I could say it,
Second
would
Grandpa,
this old man
what
still
level
be
is this
standing here
Taoist
begging
mirror?
you?" When His
I don't
Majesty
know
arrived
either.
at the Butterfly
However,
Valley,
at least 10
he
false
told this
gods
old
are
man
needed
not
to
to reveal
revive
the
the
news that
Taoist
he is
mirror.
not dead to anyone.
Second
Old
Grandpa
man
said
Qin
to
sighed
himself,
helplessly.
"What?
This is what you
At
deserve.
least 10 false
Don't
gods.
expect us to
Lu
sympathize
Zhang was
with
stunned,
you."
and
Lu
his
Zhang
breathing
snorted
became rapid.
coldly.
Old
He
Man
muttered,
Qin's heart was
"So,
extremely
it's
bitter.
much more powerful
Qin
than Lu
Feiyong
Qing's
said,
all-seeing eye?
"What you just
They
said
can't
should be
be
the first
compared.
step of the
The
Imperial
all-seeing
Advisor's
eye
plan.
is a fighting
What is
soul.
the second step
Its
of his
power will
plan?
continue to increase
Wait.
as its owner's
Old
cultivation
Man Qin
level
said,
increases."
Wait.
Second
The
Grandpa
commander
said.
of the Kirin
Lu
army
Zhang
and Lu
said in
Zhang looked at
surprise,
each other.
"You mean
Their
Mu
eyes
Qing's
full of
all-seeing eye
suspicion.
will surpass the Taoist
He is
mirror
waiting
sooner
for
or
the
later?"
right time. That's
Qin Feiyong
inevitable.
thought for a while
Second
and said,
Grandpa nodded.
After
Lu
a
Zhang
while,
was
if
speechless.
His Majesty still
He
hasn't
said,
returned,
"It seems
will
that we have to
continue to
find a
let people
chance to
pretend
get rid of
His
His
Majesty
person.
and fake imperial
If
edicts.
there's a chance, it's
His
best to
Majesty
get rid
has
of him.
successfully broken through
Otherwise,
to the false
this
god
person
realm.
will become our biggest
However,
enemy in
after
the
breaking
future.
through to the false god realm,
However, it
His
won't be
Majesty
easy
is
for him
already
to
tired
surpass
of
the
everything in the
Taoist mirror.
secular world.
Because according to my
He
research,
chose to continue
the
to
Taoist
cultivate
mirror
in
should be a
seclusion
divine
and pass
artifact
the
of the
throne to
same
the
level
little
as
prince.
Chang Shui and the castle.
At that time,
of course,
the little
this
prince
is just
will be
my
able
guess.
to inherit the throne
Maybe
legitimately.
Chang Shui and the
Old
castle
Man
are of a
Qin
higher
sighed.
level than the Taoist
Emperor
mirror.
Hong also agreed
Second
to this.
Grandpa laughed
Qin
secretly.
Feiyong asked,
Wait, this
"Are
is
you
what
sure
Emperor
that the
Hong
Taoist
told me
mirror is of the
personally.
same level as
Of
Chang
course,
Shui?"
he agreed.
And Emperor
Lu
Hong
Zhang
also
frowned.
said that in a few days,
Why do you ask?
he will take the little
Second
prince to the
Grandpa
back
was
of the mountain
suspicious.
and personally train him.
Last time in
Old
Wang
Man
Yangfeng's
Qin
village,
was worried.
in order to
And
kill
his
the state
expression was
preceptor,
extremely
my
haggard.
younger cousin lent Chang
"Little
Shui
prince,"
to Ren Duxing.
Qin Feiyong
At
murmured
that
and
time,
said with a smile,
Ren Duxing
"I have
revived
no
Chang Shui
objections to
with
letting
just
the
a
little
wisp of his
prince inherit
divine
the throne."
consciousness.
Old Man
But
Qin's
now, the
expression
sky
froze and
stealing
he said
mirror needs
angrily,
10 fake gods
"You know
to be
that His
revived.
Majesty is not dead.
Why does it
and
seem
you
like
still
Chang
say
Shui's
such
level
things?
is lower than the
Isn't
sky
that too
stealing
much?"
mirror?
Lu Zhang was
Besides,
doubtful.
Do you think
"Are
that
you
the
sure
Imperial
that Ren
Advisor
Duxing
will
has
really
fully
support
recovered?
the little prince? Second Grandpa
He's
chuckled.
just using the little
What do you
prince."
mean? In
Lu
other
Zhang
words,
was stunned.
the little prince
Chang
is purely
Shui
a
is not as
puppet.
simple as you
In
think.
the end,
He
when
will
Ren
definitely
Duxing
die in
revived
the hands of the
Chang Shui,
Imperial Advisor.
he probably didn't even
Old
have
Man
1/10
Qin
of
was
his power.
furious.
He never
Although
thought
this old
that
man
Qin
doesn't know
Feiyong would
exactly how
actually
strong
agree
Chang
with the
Shui
little
is,
prince inheriting
this
the
old man
throne.
can determine that if
Of
he
course
fully
I know.
recovers, he should be able to destroy half of the great Qin
But I'm
Empire.
more willing to see
or
what
perhaps
expression
even
the
stronger
Emperor
will have when he
Second
returns
Grandpa
and finds that his
said.
own son has
What?
replaced him and sat on the throne of the Emperor.
Lu Zhang was
Qin
dumbfounded
Feiyong
and
joked,
asked,
"Can't the
Little
sky-stealing
cousin,
mirror do the
don't
same?"
forget the Imperial
No.
Jade Seal.
Although the
sky-stealing mirror
Jade
can
Seal
spy
must
on
be in the
everything,
hands of the Emperor
it's
now.
not very lethal.
As long as the Imperial Jade
considered an
Seal is still
auxiliary
there,
divine object.
no one can take away his throne.
Of course, it's
Lu
not
Zhang
without
said,
any lethality.
"My original
Second
thoughts were the same
Grandpa
as
said.
yours. But when
I
I
see.
found out that
Lu
Emperor
Zhang
Hong was
looked
not
at the
dead,
sky-stealing
I changed
mirror.
my mind. Although it was
Do you
only an
know
auxiliary
why?
divine
Because
object,
as Old Man
it was an
Qin
invincible
said,
existence
the
in
inheritance
today's
of the
world.
Emperor's throne is
If he
related
could
to
get
the
it,
foundation of the
thinking
country.
of this,
He
if the
couldn't
little
help but
prince
feel
really ascends
excited.
to the throne,
Don't
Emperor
blame this
Hong
old
will
man
not
for
allow
not
the
telling
Emperor
you
to
in
ascend to the
advance.
throne again.
The
Because this is
sky-stealing
too
mirror is the most
childish.
precious treasure of
Although
the Lu
the Emperor
family.
has the
If
Imperial
you dare to
Jade
do
Seal in his
anything to
hands, it
Second
doesn't mean
Grandpa
much.
smiled coldly,
Because as long
pointed
as
at the 10
Emperor
people
Hong
and
says
said,
a word, they will let
he will
you taste
obediently
despair.
hand it over. How dare
Unless
I?
he can rush
Lu
back to the
Zhang
imperial
smiled
capital before the
embarrassedly.
little prince inherits
Boom.
the throne.
Before he finished
Otherwise,
speaking,
no matter how he
a mighty
struggles,
aura
he will
rushed out
lose
of the
everything
sky-stealing
forever.
mirror.
There
Qin
seemed to be
Feiyong
images
sneered.
flashing on the
When
transparent
Old
mirror,
Man Qin heard
but they
these
were
words,
very blurry
his
and couldn't be
gaze
seen
trembled
clearly.
slightly.
He
How could
actually
this
didn't
be?
think of this
The
point.
10 people looked
Lu
at the
Zhang frowned
sky-stealing
and said,
mirror. Then
"Their
the little
faces
prince
full of
inherits the
shock.
throne.
He
Second
will need the
Grandpa
Imperial
also took a
Jade
step
Seal,
forward
right?
and landed beside the
Isn't
old
that
man in
simple?
white.
They
He said in
even
a
dare
deep
to
voice,
pretend to be the
the
Emperor.
sky-stealing mirror
How
has never
difficult
had
is it
such
to
a
forge an
situation
Imperial
before.
Jade Seal?
Could it be? Qin Feiyong
That's
said
right.
indifferently. The
Old
Emperor
Man
must have
Qin's
used
gaze
the divine
trembled,
order
and he
left by
hurriedly
the
said,
previous emperor.
"Qin
Feiyong,
The old
you
man
can't
in
treat
white
your father
said,
like this. Is he crazy?
Although he did do
For
a lot of things
10,000
to let you
years,
down,
no
as a
emperor has
son,
used the divine
can't
order
you be a
because
little
they
more
all know that the
magnanimous?
divine order is the last
last life-saving
Magnanimous?
talisman of the
Have
great
you ever
Qin
tasted
Empire.
the feeling of being abandoned
Has he
and
never
living a
thought
life
about
worse
how to
than
protect
death?
the great Qin
Have
Empire
you
when
ever
it faces
tasted
a
the
disaster
despair
in the
of falling
future?
from heaven to hell
Second
overnight?
Grandpa
was furious.
Have you ever tasted
the
the
old
pain
man
of being
in white
hurt by
looked
the
at
father
second
you
grandpa
respect and rely
sighed.
on the most?
Our current emperor
Have you
is a
ever
little
tasted the
selfish.
torture of not being
The
able to
others also
recognize your
frowned.
mother even though
Lu
she's right
Zhang
in front of
noticed
you?
that the atmosphere
You
was
haven't.
not right.
Then may
He
I
looked
ask,
at the
what
sky-stealing mirror and
qualifications
flew
do you
to
have to
second
talk to me
grandpa's
about these
side.
principles here? He frowned
Qin
and said,
Feiyong roared,
Second
his
Grandpa,
eyes
what's going
bloodshot.
on?
Old
It's
man
a long
Qin
story.
fell silent.
In short,
Actually,
whether it's
when
the
I first
sky-stealing
returned to the
mirror or the
Imperial
all-seeing
capital,
eye, if he was
they
willing
can't
to
find
tell
the
me the
emperor
reason,
anymore.
even if he had made a
Second
thousand
Grandpa
mistakes,
said
I
helplessly.
would have forgiven him.
This,
But he didn't.
Lu Zhang's face
Not only
stiffened.
did he not,
Second
but he
Grandpa
continued
said,
to hurt
Go
me.
and tell
The
Feiyong
most
not to force
unforgivable
himself too
thing
much.
is that he actually
Follow
hurt
his
mother.
heart.
Do
Okay.
you know?
Lu
Every
Zhang
time
nodded.
I think of what happened to
Bright
Mother all
Sky
these
Palace.
years, my heart
After
feels
Lu
like it's
Zhang
stabbed with a
returned,
knife.
he conveyed
Bleeding and
second
hurting.
grandpa's words to Qin
How I wish
Feiyong
that the
without
person
missing a
who
word.
suffered in the
But
Imperial
he didn't
Palace
say
was
a
me,
word about the
not mother.
sky-stealing mirror. He only said that no one could find the emperor now. Qin Feiyong pondered for a while. Then, looking at Qin the outside world and continued to copy the Xing character and the commander of the Kirin army glanced at Qin Feiyong and then was unable to refute. Because it was the truth. In addition to Wang Yongfeng, the reason why Qin Feiyong hated the world so much was because of the emperor. The fire Qilin. After a long time, ever since they rescued the fire Qilin let out a long sigh. It had been recovering. Forward and patted Qin Feiyong's shoulder. 10 days in the castle was one day outside. It was almost fully recovered reluctantly. He looked at old Qin and waved his hand. I'm not in the mood to talk to you. My Lu family only wants the divine Kirin army was anxious. Lu Zhang looked at the fire Qilin and muttered to himself. There's nothing to say now. Cross-legged on the ground and closed his eyes to meditate. Stopped the commander of the Kirin army. The construction of the herb shield was finally completed. The commander of the Kirin army sighed helplessly and could only follow him. Seahorse and the others all came to the castle and continued to cultivate and said, as for the follow-up management of the Grand Master wants to kill you. Handed it over to Old Master this time, Luo Chen, but he won't give up easily in the future. And Lu Ji. I know. Of course. I plan to follow Old Qin by the four of them. Because they wanted to share some of the burden with Qin Feiyong. Why didn't the Grand Master of the Sky Tiger tribe was also nearing completion? The commander of the Kirin army. It was worth mentioning that Wang Xiaojie and Mu Chen also fought with the beasts in the ancient tower all day long. Qin Feiyong said, whether it was their temperament or courage, they were slowly changing my life. Especially the commander of the Kirin army shook his head and laughed at himself. Then he left with old Qin. He was putting his life on the line. Lu Zhang waved his hand and the door closed. Day by day just like that. Then he looked at Qin Feiyong and said, 15 days had passed. Do? Inside the ancient castle, whoever makes me a total of 150 days had passed. Flashed in Qin Feiyong's eyes. To 5 months. Just as Qin Feiyong was about to bring Lu Zhang into the castle, Qin Feiyong finally completed the second stroke of the movement character formula. This person was about 1 to a 3-star combat 75 meters tall. According to the time in the outside world, but he seemed to be in high spirits. Took 5 days more than the first stroke. His hands were behind his back. It seems that the later strokes, the longer the time needed. He stood outside the hall and glanced at bright heaven had changed. Then, without asking for Qin Feiyong's permission, I don't know how long it would take for me to complete all the strokes of the movement character formula. His wrinkled old face was filled with arrogance. He calmed his heart, restrained his aura, and looked at the red-clothed old man and frowned slightly. Lu Zhang was awakened by Qin Feiyong's aura. In his eyes. Seeing that Qin Feiyong had no intention of asking about the situation outside, he swept his eyes over the layout in his heart and continued to cultivate. Although Qin Feiyong and these days were right in front of him, not only Qin Feiyong, he turned a blind eye to them. Everyone's cultivation had improved. Do you know him? Especially white-eyed Lu Zhang secretly transmitted his voice to Qin Feiyong. He had always been in seclusion cultivation. Arrogant attitude in addition, very unhappy. His talent was better than everyone else's. Unfathomable. So his current cultivation had already reached the level of a 2-star combat emperor. Qin Feiyong thought to himself. Its plan was to catch up to Qin Feiyong no matter what. Know? Although he didn't have the purple gold dragon blood and his speed wasn't as fast as Qin Feiyong in the great Qin Empire, he had more time than Qin Feiyong. Lu Zhang was incredulous. He didn't need to care about the outside world. Qin Feiyong raised his eyebrows and looked at the red-clothed old man. Who are you? Why another 10 days into my bright heaven palace? In addition to the previous 15 days, your bright heaven palace? A total of 25 days had passed since the emperor went missing. He turned to Qin Feiyong and said indifferently, someone who has been expelled from the imperial capital actually has the right to occupy Bright Heaven Palace? What a joke. Although his tone was calm, it was full of contempt. Deliberately picking a fight? Qin Feiyong and Lu Zhang looked at each other, the same thought creeping into their minds at the same time. The last time I came back, I said that no one is allowed to enter Bright Heaven Palace without my permission. I don't care who you are. Get out at once. Qin Feiyong shouted. When he saw that Qin Feiyong was enraged, Lu Zhang smiled playfully and retreated to the side knowingly. He crossed his arms and waited for the show to begin. Earlier on, this cousin of his was already filled with anger from old Qin's provocation, and was worried that he had nowhere to vent it. However, he did not expect that someone would take the initiative to approach. Wasn't that just asking for a beating? As for the identity of the red-clothed old man, it was not important to Qin Feiyong at all. That was because even if the heavens were to descend, he would still beat them up without hesitation. However, when he heard Qin Feiyong's words, the red-clothed old man did not restrain himself at all. Instead, he became even more brazen and insolent. He looked at Qin Feiyong with contempt. Who do you think you are? How dare you yell at me? Me. Qin Feiyong narrowed his eyes slightly. Anyone who dared to call themselves that was not simple.
He sized up the red-clothed old man carefully. He discovered that this person's aura was comparable to Zhuge Nanhua's.
In other words, this person was a super expert at the peak of the 9-star War Emperor realm. However, so what if he was a super expert at the peak of the 9-star War Emperor realm? If it was in the past, he might still be afraid. But now if the false god did not appear, who could do anything to him? Qin Feiyang chuckled and said, "Then Junior would like to ask Senior, who do you think you are?" Seeing this smile, the playful look on Lu Zheng's face became even more intense. The red-clothed old man was so angry that his beard blew and his eyes widened. He said angrily, "How dare you? Do you know who I am? Do you know the consequences of offending me?"
Qin Feiyang smiled and said, "Then do you know the consequences of offending me, Qin Feiyang?"
Boom.
The red-clothed old man was furious.
A terrifying pressure pounced towards Qin Feiyang. As expected, he was a super expert at the peak of the 9-star War Emperor realm. After confirming the red-clothed old man's cultivation, Qin Feiyang's eyes also surged with a cold light.
With a wave of his hand, the three of them immediately disappeared without a trace.
The next moment, Qin Feiyang, Lu Zhang, and the red-clothed old man appeared in the ancient castle. "Junior Leopard, Old Wang, hurry up and attack." The white-eyed wolf immediately roared. Lei Bao, Wang Yongfeng, and the others immediately pounced towards the red-clothed old man. The movements outside could be heard from the ancient castle, and the white-eyed wolf knew Qin Feiyang's character and temper like the back of his hand. Therefore, when he heard the red-clothed old man's words outside, the white-eyed wolf knew that Qin Feiyang would definitely not let this person off easily. So, he had already asked Lei Bao, Seal, Seahorse, Wang Yongfeng, and the others to prepare early in the morning. Finally, sure enough, it was as expected. Qin Feiyang brought the red-clothed old man to the ancient castle. There was no suspense. Facing Lei Bao, Wang Yongfeng, and the others who were ready to attack, the red-clothed old man was directly beaten to the ground. His entire body was dripping with blood in an instant, and miserable howls could be heard incessantly. His qi was shattered by Lei Bao at the first moment. "You are simply too presumptuous. How dare you beat me? Quickly stop. Then kneel down and apologize to me.
Otherwise, I will not let you off easily." The red-clothed old man howled and roared at the same time.
He was almost crazy. "How dare you be so arrogant? Continue to beat him up. Today, I will beat you until you kneel down and beg for mercy." The white-eyed wolf shouted. Wang Yongfeng and the others looked at each other and silently retreated to the side. Because they were all old people, they were somewhat unable to do such a thing as bullying the young with numbers. But Lei Bao, Seal, and Seahorse were all shameless people. They did not care so much. They would beat him up first. "It hurts.
"Stop beating him." Accompanied by the miserable screams that sounded like a pig being slaughtered, the red-clothed old man's nose and eyes were swollen in a short while.
His whole body was covered with bruises, and he was in an extremely sorry state. And Qin Feiyang, with his hands behind his back, stood at the side like a sharp sword, his face shining with a cold light.
Lu Zhang leaned against the wall at the side, crossed his arms in front of his chest, and looked at the red-clothed old man gloatingly.
"Qin Feiyang, if you don't make them stop, I can guarantee that you will regret it for the rest of your life."
The red-clothed old man had been beaten to the point that he could not get up from the ground, but he was still so arrogant.
He raised his head and looked at Qin Feiyang, his eyes filled with a sinister light. Qin Feiyang said expressionlessly, "Whether you will regret it or not, I don't know, but I know that you might die today." Hearing this, the red-clothed old man's gaze trembled and he roared, "I am someone by Emperor Hong's side, you dare to kill me?" "What? Emperor Hong's people?" As soon as these words came out, everyone was shocked. The Thunder Leopard and the other two beasts couldn't help but stop and look at Qin Feiyang. Although they didn't know who Emperor Hong was, hearing the conversation between Qin Feiyang and Elder Qin, it wasn't hard to imagine that he was definitely a terrifying existence. Lu Zhang also frowned, his expression somewhat solemn. Only Qin Feiyang was still expressionless. He didn't say anything, and only looked at the red-clothed old man. At this moment, the red-clothed old man couldn't help but panic. Because the look in Qin Feiyang's eyes right now made him feel afraid. And it was a kind of fear that came from the depths of his soul.
So what if you're Emperor Hong's people? Continue to beat him up.
Suddenly, Qin Feiyong said coldly. Order received. With Qin Feiyong's words, what else was there to worry about? The thunder leopard and the other two beasts swarmed forward again. The leopard's claws, the horse's hooves, like a torrential storm, landed on the red-clothed old man's body. Ah! The red-clothed old man's life was worse than death. He never would have thought that after knowing that he was one of Emperor Hong's men, Qin Feiyong would still dare to continue beating him up. Stop hitting me, stop hitting me. If you keep hitting me, I'll die. I'm begging for mercy, it's my fault. He was truly afraid. He looked at Qin Feiyong pleadingly and cried out. Qin Feiyong turned a deaf ear to him. It wasn't until the thunder leopard and the other two beasts had beaten the red-clothed old man's body that Qin Feiyong waved his hand, indicating for the three beasts to retreat.
Overestimating yourself.
Reckless fool.
I don't know what I'm talking about.
The thunder leopard and the other two beasts looked at the red-clothed old man with disdain, then retracted their claws and hooves and retreated to the side. The red-clothed old man was about to get up. After all, he was a super expert at the peak of the 9-star War King realm. These injuries were not fatal. But Qin Feiyong took a step forward and stepped on the red-clothed old man's head.
Bang! The red-clothed old man's face was once again in close contact with the ground.
I was wrong, I was blind. Please spare me. The red-clothed old man wailed. Qin Feiyong said, Answer me, did you come to find me yourself, or did Emperor Hong ask you to come find me?
It was Emperor Hong who asked me to come. The red-clothed old man said.
Qin Feiyong asked, Why is Emperor Hong looking for me?
The red-clothed old man hurriedly said. He asked me to come and invite you to the back of the mountain.
As for why, I don't know either.
Qin Feiyong said. Since you're inviting me to the back of the mountain, then you still dare to be so impudent in front of me?
I'm sorry, I'm really sorry. The red-clothed old man hurriedly apologized. Qin Feiyong loosened his foot, retreated to the side, lowered his head and muttered to himself. Emperor Hong actually wanted to see him. Chapter 1362. Do you want to go? Lu Zheng glanced at Qin Feiyong and asked telepathically. When I was young, I wanted to see this legendary figure, but unfortunately, I thought he was dead. Now that I have this opportunity, of course I have to go and see. Moreover, I also want to know what his attitude will be after seeing me. Qin Feiyong thought to himself with a complicated look in his eyes. Then you be careful. Lu Zheng warned. Qin Feiyong nodded, picked up the old man in red, and left the ancient castle. He then opened the portal and directly descended above the entrance of the back mountain of the imperial palace. At the entrance, there was a large number of Kirin army gods. Qin Feiyong. Seeing Qin Feiyong appear, the Kirin army suddenly changed their expressions as if they were facing a great enemy. Those who block the way will die. Qin Feiyong glanced at them indifferently and passed by them openly. Then, under the guidance of the old man in red, he flew toward the depths of the back mountain of the imperial palace. None of the Kirin army dared to stop him. However, after Qin Feiyong disappeared, they immediately released the news. What? What is he doing in the back mountain? The imperial advisor received the news and his old face was full of surprise. At the same time, old Qin and the Kirin army commander were also full of doubts. After a while, Qin Feiyong came to a black fog. The black fog covered the mountains and the earth in all directions. There were no beasts or plants in the area covered by the black fog. It was barren like a forbidden zone of death. Although Qin Feiyong rarely entered the depths of the back mountain of the imperial palace, he was no stranger to this place and the black fog. This black fog was called the soul-devouring fog. It had a strong penetrating power that could easily penetrate the sea of consciousness and erode the soul. And the god's prison that made people tremble in fear was also in there. Qin Feiyong glanced at the soul-devouring fog and frowned. Did you bring me to the wrong place? This soul-devouring fog required at least a 9-star combat emperor to resist. What do you mean? The red-clothed old man was confused. This is clearly the location of the divine prison, and you brought me here. Don't tell me that Emperor Hong is currently in the divine prison? Qin Feiyong said. He's not in the divine prison. However, if you want to go to Emperor Hong's residence, you must pass through here, because Emperor Hong lives at the back of the divine prison. The red-clothed old man was afraid that Qin Feiyong would misunderstand that he had ulterior motives, so he quickly explained.
Qin Feiyong said, "Then take out the token."
A token was required to pass through the soul-devouring fog. This token could release a golden barrier to isolate the soul-devouring mist. The commander of the Kirin army had one. When he went to save his mother, it was the commander of the Kirin army who led him into the god's prison.
I didn't.
The old man shook his head.
No.
Qin Feiyong raised his eyebrows.
The red-clothed old man said, "With my cultivation, I can completely ignore the soul-devouring fog."
How could I have a token?
That makes sense.
Qin Feiyong nodded.
The red-clothed old man said, "Why don't you rest here for a while?
After I repair my qi, I'll bring you in?
Is it necessary?"
Qin Feiyong laughed disdainfully. Right now, he had a 9-star war emperor and a 9-star emperor beast by his side. Not to mention,
now that the castle could move, even without the help of the token and the 9-star war emperor, he could freely travel through the soul-devouring fog.
Qin Feiyong grabbed the red-clothed old man and entered the castle. Then, he drove the castle straight in. Soon, he saw the divine prison. As usual, the divine prison was located on top of a mountain. It was like an ancient beast, emitting a heart-palpitating aura. And in front of the divine prison, there were 2 black-robed men guarding. They were like 2 stone sculptures, sitting cross-legged on the ground without moving. The aura emitted from their bodies was also extremely terrifying. Of course, their identities were not simple either.
Even when the commander of the Kirin army saw them, he had to respectfully address them as ancestor.
However, at this moment, the castle flew past the divine prison, and they did not notice it. After brushing past the divine prison, the castle continued to fly deeper into the divine prison. About 100 breaths passed. The castle finally flew out of the soul-devouring fog's area, and what entered the scene was a vibrant mountain range. The mountains were lush with vegetation, and wild flowers were blooming. Clear rivers ran through the east, west, north, and south like giant dragons. Moreover, there were also many fierce beasts here. Every fierce beast had reached the War Emperor realm.
However, they were very well behaved and quietly cultivated, making this place seem especially peaceful, like a paradise.
I didn't expect that there would be such a peaceful place hidden in the back mountain of the Imperial Palace. Qin Feiyong brought the red-clothed old man and appeared above a mountain ridge. He scanned the mountains below with a surprised expression. The fierce beasts in the mountain stream also discovered Qin Feiyong. But not a single fierce beast went to find trouble with Qin Feiyong. They all looked at him curiously. Where do we go now?
Qin Feiyong retracted his gaze, looked at the red-clothed old man and asked.
Continue forward, about 20 miles, and you will see a huge mountain. Emperor Hong is there.
The red-clothed old man said.
Qin Feiyong waved his hand, and brought the red-clothed old man, cutting through the sky like lightning.
Not long after, he saw the huge mountain that the red-clothed old man had mentioned.
The huge mountain was more than 1,000 feet tall, surrounded by mist, and auspicious beasts were flying. A waterfall poured down from the top of the mountain, converging into a lake at the foot of the mountain. The lake was about a few hundred feet long, and the water rippled. In the lake, groups of colorful fish swam happily. Around the lake, there was a patch of green. The lotus leaves were slender and elegant, and the lotus flowers were blooming one after another. Some of them were blooming, competing for beauty, while some were budding, like young girls in their boudoir. An inconspicuous courtyard sat quietly by the lakeside. The courtyard was large, but very old. A neat row of wooden fences surrounded the courtyard. Inside, there was a vegetable garden, a flower garden, a pavilion, a stream, and a 2-story wooden building. This place was full of simplicity and tranquility. And in this tranquility, a white-haired old man sat alone by the lake. In front of him was a stone table. On the stone table, a teapot and a teacup were neatly placed. The teacup was filled with tea, and the fragrance of the tea assailed the nose.
And in the old man's hand, he was also holding a teacup.
He slowly tasted the tea while admiring the beautiful scenery of the lake, incomparably comfortable.
He is Emperor Hong.
The red-clothed old man pointed at the white-haired old man and said to Qin Feiyong, his expression full of respect. Qin Feiyong raised his head to look at the white-clothed old man. The old man's back was facing Qin Feiyong, so Qin Feiyong could not see the old man's face. But from the old man's back, Qin Feiyong saw a transcendent aura, as if he was a god from beyond the heavens. "Come here." Suddenly,
The old man's voice sounded, without the slightest hint of strength.
it was flat and indifferent, making people feel very comfortable. Qin Feiyong took a deep breath and walked over in large strides. The lake rippled, and a few small red carps jumped out of the lake, as if welcoming Qin Feiyong, and then jumped back into the lake, splashing waves. Qin Feiyong walked to the old man's side. The old man smiled and said, "The tea is prepared for you, sit down." Qin Feiyong looked at the teacup on the stone table, threw the red-clothed old man on the ground, and then walked to the opposite side of the old man and sat on the stone bench. Immediately, the old man's face entered Qin Feiyong's line of sight. It was a very kind face.
Although the old man's face was covered with the traces of time, his eyes were very bright, and there was no aggressive feeling.
He was very peaceful, giving people a sense of approachability. Qin Feiyong picked up the teacup, put it to the tip of his nose and smelled it, but did not drink it. He put down the teacup again, and did not look at the old man again, turning his head to look at the clear lake. Emperor Hong also did not speak, quietly tasting the tea. The red-clothed old man got up, looked at Qin Feiyong with resentment, ran to the side of Emperor Hong and shouted, "Lord, you have to uphold justice for me." "What?" Emperor Hong asked with a smile. "I kindly invited him over, but he didn't know what was good for him, and actually let his subordinates and fierce beasts humiliate me.
Look, the injuries on my body were all caused by them.
They even destroyed my sea of qi,"
the red-clothed old man said with grievance.
Emperor Hong looked at the red-clothed old man, shook his head and smiled. "It's already lucky to be able to keep your life. What else do you want to do? Leave."
The red-clothed old man still wanted to say something.
Emperor Hong waved his hand. Seeing this, the red-clothed old man's expression was suddenly filled with helplessness. He turned around and disappeared into the wooden building in the courtyard with a belly full of resentment. Emperor Hong glanced at Qin Feiyong and continued to drink tea. Sigh. After an unknown period of time, Qin Feiyong sighed faintly, turned his head to look at Emperor Hong, and said, "Should I call you Emperor Hong? Or should I call you great-grandfather?" Great-grandfather? Inside the castle. Hearing Qin Feiyong's words, whether it was the white-eyed wolf and the other beasts, Lu Hong, Wang Yongfeng, and the others, they were all dumbfounded. Outside. When Emperor Hong heard this, he put down his teacup, lowered his head in silence for a while, and said with a smile, "You can call me whatever you want, even if you call me old man, I won't mind." Lu Zheng, what the hell is going on? How did Emperor Hong become little Qin Zi's great-grandfather? Inside the castle. The white-eyed wolf looked at Lu Zheng in surprise. Wang Yongfeng and the others also looked at Lu Zheng, their faces full of suspicion. Sigh. Lu Zheng sighed deeply and said, "Emperor Hong was originally little cousin's great-grandfather, and Emperor Hong has two other identities." "What identity?" the white-eyed wolf asked. "The biological son of the late emperor, the second emperor of the Great Qin Empire," Lu Zheng said. What? Everyone's expression changed. The biological son of the late emperor? The second emperor of the Great Qin Empire? God! This old man's identity was too terrifying. No wonder even the state preceptor and elder Qin were so respectful to Emperor Hong. By the lake. Qin Feiyong looked at Emperor Hong quietly, and then shook his head with a smile, and said indifferently, "I am a person who has been expelled from the imperial palace. What qualifications do I have to call you great-grandfather? It's better to call you Emperor Hong, so as to avoid falling into the hands of others, saying that I, Qin Feiyong, am trying to climb up the ranks." "As long as you're happy." Emperor Hong smiled. There was no reluctance, as if in his eyes, Qin Feiyong was really not a descendant of his Qin clan. Qin Feiyong laughed at himself. Originally, he thought that when Emperor Hong heard his words, he would feel a little regret, but in the end, he was very disappointed. Actually, although Qin Feiyong hated the emperor, he did not hate everyone. Chapter 1363. Because Emperor Hong was his great-grandfather after all. Blood was thicker than water. If just now, Emperor Hong could show even the slightest bit of regret, Qin Feiyong would respectfully call him great-grandfather. What a pity. He didn't see it. Was it sad?
He felt that he was indeed quite sad.
As a descendant of the Qin clan, he was actually so unrecognized.
After letting out a long breath, Qin Feiyong looked at Emperor Hong and said, I don't want to talk nonsense, just say it, why are you looking for me?
Emperor Hong looked at Qin Feiyong in astonishment and said with a smile, I've often heard people say that you are a swift and decisive person. It really isn't false at all. Since that's the case, then this old man will not beat around the bush. Qin Feiyong looked at him calmly.
Emperor Hong asked, Not long ago, what happened in the throne room, I believe you have already received the news, right?
Yes. Qin Feiyong nodded. Do you know the reason? Emperor Hong asked.
Qin Feiyong said, I know everything.
Emperor Hong was slightly taken aback and asked suspiciously, The emperor was impersonated by Zhuge Nanhua, you know that too? What are you trying to say? Qin Feiyong began to get impatient.
Emperor Hong laughed. Young man, don't be so impatient.
This old man wants to know, who told you? Old Qin. Qin Feiyong did not hide it. Because if Emperor Hong wanted to investigate, he would definitely not be able to hide it. So that's how it is.
Emperor Hong nodded his head in realization and said with a smile, It's good that you know, lest this old man say another word and waste time.
Qin Feiyong frowned and asked in confusion, What do you mean? And you plan to tell me these things personally?
Yes. Emperor Hong nodded.
Why? Qin Feiyong was puzzled.
Emperor Hong said, Because this old man wants you to know the truth, and only after knowing the truth can I cut off your thoughts.
The more Qin Feiyong listened, the more he felt that something was wrong and said, What thoughts do I have?
Emperor's throne.
Emperor Hong drank a mouthful of tea, raised his head to look at Qin Feiyong, and said, Whoosh.
Qin Feiyong suddenly stood up, his eyes burning with anger.
It turned out that this old man was worried that he would covet the throne.
Emperor Hong smiled and said, Don't tell this old man that you don't have any thoughts about the throne?
Haha. Qin Feiyong raised his head and laughed out loud. She had specially called him over because she suspected him? Great-grandfather? Family? Haha. What a joke. At this moment, his heart was as cold as steel. He, Qin Feiyong, would rather not have such a family. Qin Feiyong returned to the stone bench.
The respect in his heart for Emperor Hong had already vanished without a trace. He sneered and said, Are you so sure that I have thoughts about the throne?
Emperor Hong said, If you don't have any thoughts, why did you kill the princes back then? Just because I killed the princes, it means that I have designs on the throne? Old man, is that all you can think of? Qin Feiyong chuckled and said, not concealing the ridicule. Emperor Hong was not angry either. He smiled faintly and said, This old man's head might not be as good as yours, but this old man's strength, I'm afraid that you will never be able to catch up in this lifetime.
Haha. Qin Feiyong laughed loudly again and said, Are you very strong?
At least stronger than you, isn't it?
Emperor Hong said with a smile.
That's true. After all, you have lived for at least 10,000 years, and I have only lived for a few decades. In terms of strength, I definitely can't compare to you. Qin Feiyong said with a smile.
As long as one was not a fool, the meaning behind these words could be understood.
It was clearly mocking Emperor Hong. Emperor Hong also did not know if he was really broad-minded, or was he enduring. There was not the slightest trace of anger on his face. It was as calm as ever. It's useless to say more. This old man just wants to tell you, if the emperor is really harmed, the little prince will be the only successor to the throne. As for you, you can live in the imperial capital, but the prerequisite is that you don't do anything out of line. After all, you are no longer a member of my Qin clan. This old man can give you a better suggestion. Where did you come from? Where did you come from? You have a free and unfettered life, and we also have a relaxed and carefree life. Why not? Emperor Hong said with a smile. Makes sense. Qin Feiyong nodded. Emperor Hong's words were originally very angry words, but at this moment, Qin Feiyong did not feel the slightest bit of anger. His heart was as calm as the Dead Sea. Seeing Qin Feiyong nod, Emperor Hong's face was full of praise.
He chuckled and said, The child can be taught.
Don't laugh so happily. What I said makes sense, but it doesn't mean that I have to listen to you. Just now, you said to let me go back to where I came from. Then now I want to ask you, where did I, Qin Feiyong, come from? Iron Ox Town? Or Imperial Palace? Qin Feiyong said. Emperor Hong fell silent. He originally wanted Qin Feiyong to return to Iron Ox Town. However, after being reminded by Qin Feiyong, he realized that Qin Feiyong was born in the Imperial Palace. A moment later, Emperor Hong raised his head to look at Qin Feiyong and said with a smile, "You can live in Bright Heaven Palace, but don't touch things that you can't touch." "Don't worry, I'm not interested.
And on the contrary, I will help the little prince ascend to the throne,"
Qin Feiyong said with a smile. Emperor Hong frowned for the first time, because this answer surprised him too much. He asked suspiciously, "Why are you doing this?" "Because the little prince is my younger brother. He's still young and inexperienced. Of course I have to help him.
Moreover, if I'm not by his side, I'm still a little worried.
After all, the current Imperial Palace is too chaotic. What if someone wants to harm him?" Qin Feiyong chuckled. Emperor Hong was silent. He looked at Qin Feiyong, trying to distinguish the truth from Qin Feiyong's expression. But in the end, he couldn't see anything.
Qin Feiyong said indifferently, "Is there anything else?"
Emperor Hong said, "Take care of the people and beasts around you. Don't let them continue to mess around in the imperial capital." A small matter. Qin Feiyong's face was full of smiles.
After saying that, he got up and said, "Then I'll take my leave."
Emperor Hong nodded. Qin Feiyong immediately turned around and strode away. But suddenly,
he stopped again, turned his head to look at Emperor Hong and said with a grin, "I forgot to tell you one more thing."
"Speak." Emperor Hong laughed. 30 years in the east, 30 years in the west. Today I, Qin Feiyong, am indeed unable to catch up to your strength. But remember, one day, I, Qin Feiyong, will let you have a taste of what it's like to be unable to catch up. Qin Feiyong said. "This old man is waiting, and I'm looking forward to it." Emperor Hong said with a faint smile. "Don't worry. I won't let you wait too long." After Qin Feiyong finished speaking, with a wild laughter, he cut through the sky like lightning and disappeared into the horizon. Emperor Hong looked in the direction where Qin Feiyong disappeared, his eyes flickering. At this time, the red-clothed old man walked out of the wooden building. His qi had been repaired, and his injuries were almost healed. He raised his head and looked in the direction where Qin Feiyong disappeared, then quickly walked to the side of Emperor Hong and bowed. "My lord, you are his great-grandfather. He actually dares to be so presumptuous." "Great-grandfather," Emperor Hong muttered, shook his head and smiled, then retracted his gaze, picked up his teacup, and while sipping his tea he looked at the lake and said, "If you want to say something, just say it. Don't beat around the bush." The red-clothed old man said, "I want to say that I can't let him continue to be so arrogant. If necessary, I have to let him suffer." "Let him suffer? Do you have the ability? If so, you wouldn't have fallen into such a sorry state before." Emperor Hong laughed. "I don't, but my lord does. With my lord's strength, if you want to teach him a lesson, isn't it just a matter of waving your hand?" The red-clothed old man said. Emperor Hong sighed and said, "There is a saying that blood is thicker than water. Although he is in the wrong, how can I bear to hurt him? Moreover, he has also obtained the inheritance of my father." The red-clothed old man said, "My lord, you are raising a tiger." "Raising a tiger?" Emperor Hong smiled disapprovingly and said, "Do you really think that he will surpass me one day? I admit, his talent is very good. But becoming a deity isn't an easy thing either. How many unparalleled geniuses are there in the world? Which one wasn't astonishingly talented when they were young? But in the end, how many can become a deity? Just like you, when you were young, you were also considered a monster. But now, aren't you still trapped at the peak realm of 9-star combat emperor, unable to advance an inch? Becoming a deity, what is needed is not just talent, but also mental state. Qin Feiyong, your obsession is too deep. Fate is already set. There is no chance to become a deity." Emperor Hong said with a faint smile. "To even be able to see this, my lord really has discerning eyes." The red-clothed old man's face was full of admiration. Bright Heaven Palace. Qin Feiyang returned to Bright Heaven Palace and directly entered the ancient castle, continuing to copy the third stroke of the line character formula. Looking at Qin Feiyang's back view, Fatso and the rest all had looks of wanting to say something but hesitated. If you don't want to say it, then go away. Big brother will say it. The white-eyed wolf pushed away Fatso and the others, walked behind Qin Feiyang, and said, Little Qin Zi, Big brother really feels that it's not worth it for you. Why? Qin Feiyang asked without turning his head. In these 2 years, in order to deal with Mu Tianyang and the state preceptor, you have been running around everywhere and fell into desperate situations several times. Now, this Emperor Hong, not only did he not say a word of gratitude, he even targeted you like this. This is simply too much. The white-eyed wolf was furious. Yes, he actually wants to drive you out of the imperial capital again. In Fat Lord's opinion, he doesn't treat you as family at all. Fatso snorted coldly. Qin Feiyang retracted his arm, turned to look at Fatso and the white-eyed wolf and asked, Then in your opinion, how should I fight back? Fat Lord says that you have to do what he doesn't want you to do. Fatso said. Yes. Didn't he tell you not to think about the throne? Why don't we just think of a way to snatch the throne? The white-eyed wolf's eyes flashed fiercely. Emperor Hong has already made up his mind to let the little prince inherit the throne. How can it be as easy as you say to snatch it? Lu Zhang shook his head. The white-eyed wolf laughed and said, What if the little prince dies? Lu Zhang was shocked and hurriedly looked at the white-eyed wolf, saying, Don't mess around. The little prince now has Emperor Hong's support. If you dare to touch him, none of us will be able to escape. What are you afraid of? What kind of storm have we not seen before? The white-eyed wolf said disdainfully. You're digging your own grave. Lu Zhang coldly snorted, looked at Qin Feiyang and said, Don't listen to the white-eyed wolf. If you really want to go against Emperor Hong, we can take our time and think about it. Don't use such radical methods. Qin Feiyang smiled and said nothing. With a faint smile he said, Let's all cultivate. Finished. Qin Feiyang then turned around and continued to copy the Xing formula. Don't come up with bad ideas in the future. It will only harm little cousin. Lu Zhang glared at the white-eyed wolf and Fatso, and also walked to the side to continue cultivating. The white-eyed wolf and Fatso pursed their lips. Looking at the wronged Qin Feiyang, they were very unhappy. Chapter 1364. After Fatso and White-Eyed Wolf entered the state of cultivation, the others also closed their eyes and calmed down to cultivate. Qin Feiyang also didn't say a word, silently copying the Xing formula. Inside the castle, it gradually calmed down, showing a peaceful atmosphere. But outside, there was an undercurrent surging. The first was the imperial preceptor. Although the first step of the plan had been completed, he didn't dare to relax at all. Because in his heart, there was always a thorn. This thorn was undoubtedly the emperor. So next, he spared no expense and sent all the people he could trust to various places in the Great Qin Empire, including the 9 provinces, to find the whereabouts of the emperor. Of course, the people who went to find the emperor were all very low-key. Because once the news was leaked, the news of the emperor's death would immediately spread throughout the Great Qin Empire. This was not the result that Emperor Hong wanted to see. As for Elder Qin and the commander of the Kirin army, at first, they were looking for various reasons to prevent the imperial preceptor's people from entering the 9 provinces. Because they knew that the emperor was in the 9 provinces. Preventing the imperial preceptor's people from entering the 9 provinces was equivalent to protecting the emperor. But soon, they realized that everything they had done was useless. Because now, the imperial preceptor had the support of Emperor Hong and was like the sun in the sky. It was impossible to stop the imperial preceptor. So, they could only give up. At the same time, they could only silently pray for the emperor in their hearts. In addition, the descendants of the Zhuge family were also slowly becoming active. But their active way was to clamor for Qin Feiyang. Especially Zhuge Jinghong, who asked Xia Chongjin to slander Qin Feiyang in the temple all day long. He said that Qin Feiyang was timid, cowardly and incompetent, and didn't dare to accept Zhuge Jinghong's challenge. The reason he did this was naturally to provoke Qin Feiyang. However, Qin Feiyang, who received the news, didn't take it seriously at all. However,
Qin Feiyang's silence caused Zhuge Jinghong to become even more aggressive and say anything. In the end, he even asked Xia Chongjin to insult Qin Feiyang's mother. Because everyone in the capital knew that the person Qin Feiyang cared about the most was his mother. Hence, Zhuge Jinghong felt that this would definitely infuriate Qin Feiyang. It was not only Zhuge Jinghong, all of the disciples of the War God Hall thought the same. That day, many disciples who usually did not show their faces came out of seclusion and gathered at the fighting arena, anticipating the arrival of Qin Feiyang. But when night fell, Qin Feiyang still did not appear. Everyone returned in disappointment. Disappointed, he couldn't help but shake his head in mockery. His mother was humiliated in public, but he didn't even show up. What an idiot. However, on the second day, something happened that shook the entire temple. Someone discovered the corpses of Zhuge Jinghong and Xia Zhongjin in the fighting arena early in the morning. The two of them were chopped into 8 pieces and thrown into the center of the arena. Their deaths were extremely tragic. That bloody scene caused countless disciples to be terrified. That was because they didn't sense any battle fluctuations in the War God Temple that night. In other words, Zhuge Jinghong and Zhuge Jinghong were assassinated soundlessly. One must know, Zhuge Jinghong was an 8-star combat emperor. To kill him soundlessly, even a 9-star combat emperor might not be able to do it. Furthermore, the War God Temple had an elder and a hall master overseeing it. The elder and the hall master were both 9-star combat emperors. Who was the culprit behind this? To actually be able to kill Zhuge Jinghong and Xia Zhongjin under the noses of 2 9-star combat emperors? But very quickly, everyone thought of one person. And the person they thought of was still the same person. Qin Feiyang. Xia Zhongjin insulted Qin Feiyang's mother that day, and the two of them were assassinated at night. If this was not done by Qin Feiyang, who else could it be? This time, no one dared to mock Qin Feiyang anymore. Even the name Qin Feiyang had become a taboo in the War God realm. But because of Zhuge Jinghong's death, the Zhuge family's hatred towards Qin Feiyang became even more intense. No one cared about Xia Zhongjin. But Zhuge Jinghong was Zhuge Nanhua's adopted son. At such a young age, he broke through to an 8-star combat emperor and could be said to be a monster. His future was limitless. It was even possible for him to step into the false god realm. Losing such a talent, if it was any other martial marquis, it would be impossible for them to remain indifferent. On the day Zhuge Jinghong died, Zhuge Nanhua and Zhuge Wuhou barged into the Hao Tian Palace in a rage, demanding Qin Feiyang to give them an explanation. But from the beginning to the end, they did not even see Qin Feiyang's face. They were definitely not reconciled, so they went to find the imperial tutor and asked him to make the decision for them. After all, the imperial tutor was now in charge of the imperial court. Everything in the Great Qin Empire was now under his control. However, not only did the imperial tutor not make the decision for them, he even reprimanded them. He even said that Zhuge Jinghong was courting death. Who was Qin Feiyang? Was he someone that Zhuge Jinghong could provoke? And he even dared to insult his mother? In today's world, who didn't know that Qin Feiyang's mother was his reverse scale, and anyone who touched it would die? Of course. Losing a monstrous descendant, the imperial tutor was also very angry. However, as a cunning old fox, he wisely chose to endure. Because right now, it was not suitable to fight with Qin Feiyang. Time was like sand between fingers. In the blink of an eye, another 10 days passed. That morning, inside the throne room, after the imperial tutor finished dealing with the imperial court, he let the civil and military officials and the head eunuch leave, leaving only Zhuge Wuhou behind. Bang! The door closed. The imperial tutor set up a soundproof barrier and sat on the dragon throne once again, looking down at Zhuge Wuhou from above. Zhuge Wuhou's expression changed, and he hurriedly said, "Ancestor, be careful of the walls having ears." "No worries." The imperial tutor waved his hand and asked, "How is the progress?" Sigh. Zhuge Wuhou shook his head and sighed. "Our people have searched almost the entire Great Qin Empire, but we have never found the whereabouts of the emperor." The imperial tutor frowned and asked, "What about Elder Qin?" "It won't work either. That old thing is too vigilant. Our people can't get close to him at all." Zhuge Wuhou's brows were filled with anger. The more he acts like this, the more suspicious he is. The imperial tutor snorted coldly. Zhuge Wuhou said helplessly, "Even so, he is still a fake god. What can we do to him?" The imperial tutor lowered his head and muttered to himself. A moment later, a cold light flashed in his eyes as he said, "If this drags on, it won't be a good thing for us. We must confirm the life and death of the emperor as soon as possible."
"What is the ancestor's opinion?" Zhuge Wuhou asked.
The imperial tutor frowned and said, "This old man has thought of a plan, but it's a bit radical."
"What plan?" Zhuge Wuhou asked.
The imperial tutor said, "Come closer."
Zhuge Wuhou walked in front of the imperial tutor.
The imperial tutor muttered in a low voice.
After listening, Zhuge Wuhou's eyes lit up.
After a moment of silence he nodded and said, "This plan is indeed a bit radical, but it is the only way right now. Qinghai Nephrite, this old man will personally go to the Sea of Samsara to look for it.
I'll leave the rest to you.
Remember, you must do it flawlessly. Don't let Emperor Hong see any clues." The imperial tutor instructed in a low voice.
Understood. Zhuge Wuhou nodded.
The imperial tutor waved his hand, and the sound barrier dissipated.
Zhuge Wuhou turned around and walked in.
Just as Zhuge Wuhou walked out of the throne room, a black-clothed man with a sinister appearance walked towards him.
This person was Yan Wei.
When the two met, Yan Wei cupped his hands and said, "Greetings, Wuhou." Zhuge Wuhou nodded his head, looked at Yan Wei with contempt, and then left in large strides. Looking at Zhuge Wuhou's back, a cold light flashed in the depths of Yan Wei's eyes. He then entered the throne room and bowed. "Greetings, Lord Imperial Tutor." The Imperial Tutor asked, "Is there any movement from Qin Feiyang's side?"
These days,
the Imperial Tutor had always asked Yan Wei to monitor Qin Feiyang near the Bright Sky Palace.
Nothing.
These days, this subordinate hasn't seen a single person. Elder Qin and the commander of the Kirin army also haven't gone to look for him. Yan Wei replied respectfully. "This little bastard, what exactly is he doing? This old man doesn't believe that he has been cultivating all this time." The Imperial Tutor frowned. In his heart, Qin Feiyang was even more difficult to deal with than Emperor Hong. Emperor Hong, as the son of the previous emperor and the second emperor, was definitely not an idiot. But fortunately, Emperor Hong did not care about the affairs of the world. So, the Imperial Tutor didn't really care. As for Qin Feiyang, he understood. According to Qin Feiyang's personality, he would definitely not sit back and do nothing. But why was there no movement at all? This caused his heart to be in a mess, unable to settle down. Yan Wei asked, 10 days ago, this subordinate heard that Qin Feiyang went to the back of the mountain? What did he go to the back of the mountain for?" The Imperial Tutor said, "This old man has personally investigated. The good thing is that Emperor Hong wants to see him."
"What?
Emperor Hong wants to see him personally?" Yan Wei was shocked. The Imperial Tutor frowned. "This old man has been wondering why Emperor Hong is looking for Qin Feiyang?"
"Didn't you ask?"
Yan Wei said.
"Who do you think Emperor Hong is?"
"He is the son of the previous emperor, and his strength is even stronger than this old man's. How would this old man dare to ask him about these things?" The Imperial Tutor said powerlessly. Yan Wei's eyes flickered.
"Wait." Suddenly,
the Imperial Tutor's eyes lit up and said, "This old man suddenly thought of someone. Maybe he can tell this old man these things."
"Who is it?"
Yan Wei was surprised.
"Qin Jun,"
the Imperial Tutor said.
"Qin Jun?"
Yan Wei was stunned. Qin Jun was Emperor Hong's page boy when he was young. This person is loyal to Emperor Hong, and Emperor Hong also takes care of him, so he has always stayed by Emperor Hong's side. The last time this old man went to see Emperor Hong, he was also present. This old man even took the initiative to establish a contract bridge with him. The Imperial Tutor laughed. "He's actually in existence from the same period as Emperor Hong?" Yan Wei's face was filled with disbelief, and asked, "Then his cultivation, isn't it also very strong?"
"His cultivation isn't that great."
Peak of the 9-Star War Emperor realm. The reason why this old man took the initiative to establish a contract bridge with him is entirely because he is Emperor Hong's page boy. The Imperial Tutor's face was filled with disdain. Yan Wei laughed bitterly and said, "Peak of the 9-Star War Emperor realm is not that great? In this world, I'm afraid that only you, my lord, would dare to say such a thing.
You don't have to be envious.
As long as you serve this imperial tutor wholeheartedly, you will be able to reach his level sooner or later.
The imperial tutor said.
Yen Wei was overjoyed and bowed. This subordinate will definitely do my best for my lord, until my death.
You're tuning in to the Xueqi's Martial Arts Saga YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.